If you're enjoying this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Share it with your friends and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Every like and subscribe helps the channel grow. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Martinez, and I need to tell you what really happened in those caves. I know what you're thinking. Why should you believe a woman locked up in a mental hospital? But I'm not crazy. I'm the only one who knows the truth about what lives deep underground in Mammoth Cave. I've been here at Belhaven Hospital for 3 years now. 3 long years of white walls, locked doors, and people telling me that the monsters I saw weren't real. But they were real. They are real. And if I don't tell someone, they'll come up from those caves and hunt again. Dr. Reynolds sits across from me in this cold room every Tuesday. He has kind eyes behind thick glasses. But I can see he doesn't believe me either. He thinks I'm sick. He thinks my mind broke after what happened to my family. Tell me about the caves again, Elizabeth, he says, clicking his pen. Start from the beginning. I take a deep breath. The air in here always smells like cleaning supplies and sadness. It was 1974. I was 29 then, working as a trauma surgeon. I was good at my job, really good. I could save people when no one else could. Dr. Reynolds nods and writes something down. You mentioned your family before. Can you tell me about them? My chest gets tight when I think about them. My husband David and my little girl Sarah. She was only 6 years old, had the brightest smile you ever saw. I close my eyes and I can still see her face. They died in a car accident. A drunk driver hit them while I was working late at the hospital. If I had been there, if I had just come home earlier. That wasn't your fault, Elizabeth, but it was. The words come out louder than I meant. I was supposed to protect them. That's what I do. I protect people. That's why I had to go into those caves. That's why I had to feed the Guardians. Dr. Reynolds stops writing. The Guardians, the creatures that live deep in Mammoth Cave, they've been there for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. They stay underground, as long as someone feeds them. But if they get too hungry, I shiver, remembering those glowing green eyes. They come up to hunt. They hunt children first. I can see Dr. Reynolds doesn't believe me. Nobody ever believes me, but I have to keep trying. After my family died, I couldn't operate anymore. Every time I held a scalpel, my hands would shake. I kept seeing Sarah's face on every patient. So I quit surgery and started working with cave rescue teams. I thought maybe I could save people in a different way. Is that how you met Jake Coleman? Jake. Sweet, brave Jake who trusted me completely. Yes, Jake was the best cave guide in Kentucky. He knew every tunnel, every drop, every dangerous spot in Mammoth Cave. We worked together for months, pulling out lost hikers and spelunkers who got in over their heads. I leaned forward, needing Dr. Reynolds to understand. Jake was like a brother to me. He was the only family I had left after David and Sarah died. We were a team. We saved people together. Tell me about the day you went into the caves with Jake. It was October 15th, 1974. A cold morning with fog rolling across the hills. We got a call about missing spelunkers. 3 college kids who hadn't come back from exploring the deeper tunnels. Their families were worried sick. I remember how Jake looked that morning. His red hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were alert and focused. He always got serious when people were in danger. Jake said something felt wrong about this one. The cave had been too quiet lately. No bats flying out at dusk, no sounds echoing from the deep passages. Even the rescue dogs wouldn't go near the main entrance. Dr. Reynolds is writing faster now. But you went in anyway? We had to. Those kids were depending on us, and I thought if I could save them, maybe it would make up for not saving my own family. Maybe the guilt would finally go away. Look at my hands. They're older now, with lines and spots that weren't there before, but I can still remember how they felt holding those cave ropes, carrying my medical bag into the darkness. We packed extra supplies that day. More rope, more lights, more first aid equipment than usual. Jake even brought explosive charges in case we needed to blast through any cave-ins. Looking back, it's like we both knew we were walking into something terrible. What happened when you entered the cave? Everything seemed normal at first. Cool air flowing out, limestone walls damp with moisture. We followed the main passage about half a mile before we found the first sign that something was wrong. I pause, remembering. Even now, 3 years later, I can smell that awful stench. There was blood on the cave floor. Fresh blood, still wet. And red. But it wasn't human blood, Dr. Reynolds. It was too thick, too dark. And it smelled like rotting meat and chemicals mixed together. Dr. Reynolds looks up from his notes. You're sure it was blood? I was a surgeon for 8 years. I know blood when I see it. But this was different. This came from something that wasn't human. I stand up and walk to the small window. Outside, normal people are living normal lives. They don't know what's waiting in the dark places under their feet. Jake wanted to turn back right then. He said we should call for backup, bring more people. But I couldn't leave those college kids down there. What if the creatures found them first? What creatures? Elizabeth? I turned back to face him. The Guardians. The things that keep the real monsters locked away deeper in the earth. They need food to stay strong. They need fresh meat to keep doing their job. Dr. Reynolds sets down his pen. Elizabeth, I need you to listen to me carefully. You've been here for 3 years. You've never left this hospital. The cave incident. You're describing. It never happened. That's not true. My voice echoes off the walls. I was there. I saw them. I fed them. You've been having these same delusions since you were admitted. The doctors who brought you here found you in your basement, surrounded by cardboard boxes you had arranged to look like cave tunnels. You were talking to empty spaces, feeding raw meat to things that weren't there. No, he's wrong. He has. To be wrong. I saved people, I whisper. I was protecting everyone by keeping the Guardians fed. If I don't feed them, they'll surface. They'll hunt children in playgrounds and schools. And Elizabeth, Dr. Reynolds' voice is gentle but firm. There are no Guardians. There are no monsters in the caves. The only person who was ever in danger was you. But he doesn't understand. None of them understand. I can still hear those creatures calling. To me in the darkness, still feel their hungry eyes watching from the deep places where light never reaches. I need to go back, I tell him. I need to feed them again. It's been 3 years, Dr. Reynolds. They must be so hungry by now. He presses a button on his desk, and I hear footsteps in the hallway. The orderlies are coming to take me back to my room. The session is over for today, Elizabeth. We'll talk more next week. As they lead me away, I try to make him understand one last time. Ask them to check the missing persons reports around Mammoth Cave. Ask them how many people have disappeared since I've been locked up in here. Then tell me I'm crazy. The door closes behind me with a solid click, but I know the truth. I know what's waiting in those caves, getting hungrier every day. Let me tell you what really happened that day. Dr. Reynolds thinks I made it all up, but every word is true. I remember everything. The smell of damp limestone, the sound of our footsteps echoing in the darkness, the way Jake's flashlight beam danced across the cave walls. We stood at the entrance to Mammoth Cave at 6 in the morning. The fog was so thick we could barely see 10 feet ahead. Jake checked his gear one more time. Ropes, carabiners, first aid kit, radio. He was always careful like that. Something's not right, Liz, he said, adjusting his helmet light. I've been guiding people through these caves for 12 years. I've never seen them this quiet. He was right. Usually you could hear water dripping, bats squeaking, air moving through the tunnels, but that morning there was nothing. Just silence that seemed to press against your ears. Those college kids have been missing for 2 days, I reminded him. Their parents are going crazy with worry. We can't just leave them down there. Jake nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. Okay, but we stick together no matter what, and if anything feels wrong, I mean really wrong, we come back up immediately. The cave mouth looked like a giant's throat, dark and wet. Our lights barely touched the blackness inside. Jake went first, like always. I followed close behind, my medical bag heavy on my shoulder. The first 100 yards were normal. The main passage was wide enough for two people to walk side by side. The walls were smooth limestone, carved by water over millions of years. Our voices echoed strangely, like the cave was whispering our words back to us. Temperatures dropping, Jake said, his breath making small clouds in the beam of his flashlight. He was right. It should have been getting warmer as we went deeper, but the air felt cold against our faces, cold and somehow thick, like it was hard to breathe. Look at this, I said, stopping near a section of wall. Do you see those marks? Jake came over and shined his light where I was pointing. There were scratches in the limestone, long, deep gouges that looked fresh. They were too regular to be natural, too deep to be made by normal cave formations. Could be from equipment, Jake said, but his voice was uncertain. Maybe the college kids tried to mark their path. I ran my finger along one of the scratches. It was smooth and clean, like it had been made by something very sharp. Jake, these marks, they're not from climbing gear. Look how deep they go. What could make cuts like this in solid rock? Kept walking, following the main passage deeper into the cave. After about half a mile, we found our first real sign of trouble. Jesus, Jake whispered, stopping so suddenly I almost ran into him. There was something on the cave floor ahead of us. In the beam of our flashlights, it looked dark and wet. As we got closer, the smell hit us, metallic and sharp, like old pennies mixed with something rotten. Is that blood? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. I knelt down and examined it carefully. In my years as a trauma surgeon, I'd seen plenty of blood, but this was different. It was too dark, almost black in some places. And there was so much of it, a trail that led deeper into the cave like someone had been dragged. We should go back, Jake said. Call the police, get a proper search team down here. But I was already following the trail with my flashlight. Jake, look at this. The blood isn't dry yet. Whoever this came from might still be alive. The trail led us off the main passage into a narrower tunnel. Here, the walls pressed closer together, and the ceiling dropped low enough that we had to duck our heads. The blood marks were clearer here. Not just drops, but smears along the walls like something had been struggling. Liz, I don't like this, Jake said. His voice sounded strange in the narrow space, muffled and distant. I know, but we can't turn back now. That's when we heard it. A sound that made both of us freeze where we stood. It started as a low rumbling, so deep we felt it in our chests, more than heard it with our ears. Then it got higher, turning into something that sounded almost like singing, but not human singing. Something else. What the hell was that? Jake whispered. We stood perfectly still, listening. The sound came again, echoing from somewhere deeper in the cave system. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like a lullaby sung by something that had never been human. It's coming from down there, I said, pointing my light into the darkness ahead. The tunnel split into 3 passages. The blood trail led down the middle one, the darkest one. Above the entrance, more of those deep scratches marked the limestone. They looked almost like writing or warnings. Jake grabbed my arm. Liz, we need to leave, right now. But before I could answer, we heard footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps coming from behind us, from the way we had just come. We turned around, our lights cutting through the darkness. Nothing there, just empty tunnels stretching back toward the surface. Did you hear that? I whispered. Jake nodded. His face was pale in the glow of our flashlights. Someone's following us. We waited, barely breathing. The footsteps came again, closer this time, but there was something wrong with them. They were too heavy, too slow, like whatever was making them was much bigger than a person. Hello? Jake called out, his voice cracking slightly. Is someone there? We're here to help. No answer. Just that terrible silence. And then the footsteps again, getting closer. The radio, I said. Try to call for backup. Jake fumbled with his radio, pressing buttons and adjusting dials. Nothing but static came out. It's not working. We're too deep, or something's interfering with the signal. The singing sound came again, but this time it was different, closer. And now it seemed to be coming from all 3 tunnels at once, like whatever was making it had surrounded us. We need to move, Jake said. Pick a passage and go. Now. I looked at the blood trail leading into the middle tunnel. Somewhere down there, people might be hurt, might be dying. I thought about my husband and daughter, about how no one had been there to save them when they needed help. This way, I said, heading toward the middle passage. Follow the blood. That's where the missing people are. Liz, wait. But I was already moving, my light bouncing off the narrow walls as I hurried deeper into the cave. Behind me, I heard Jake curse softly and follow. The tunnel got smaller as we went, forcing us to crawl in some places. The air was getting thicker, harder to breathe, and the smell was getting stronger. That mix of blood and rot and something else, something I couldn't identify. Look, Jake said, pointing ahead. Light! He was right. There was a faint glow coming from around a bend in the tunnel. Not electric, light. Something softer, more green than yellow. We crawled toward it, our equipment scraping against the limestone. As we got closer, the glow got brighter, and with it came a new smell, sharp and chemical, like cleaning supplies mixed with decay. When we finally reached the source of the light, we both stopped moving. We stopped breathing. The tunnel opened into a large chamber. The walls glowed, with a pale green light that seemed to come from the rock itself and scattered across the floor. I wish I could forget what we saw in that chamber. Even now, 3 years later, I wake up screaming about it. But I have to tell you, you need to understand what's down there. The green glow was coming from some kind of slime on the walls. It moved slowly, like it was alive, spreading across the limestone in thick patches. When our flashlights hit it, it got brighter, pulsing, like a heartbeat. But that wasn't the worst part. Scattered across the floor were pieces of equipment, backpacks, ropes, helmets with lights still attached. Some of it looked new, like it had been left there recently. Other pieces were old and broken, covered in that green slime. Those are the college kids' backpacks, Jake said, his voice barely a whisper. He picked up a red backpack and checked the name tag. Jenny Morrison. She's one of the missing students. I knelt down next to a helmet that was cracked right down the middle. Inside it, there were dark stains that looked like dried blood. Jake, where are the people who owned this stuff? That's when we heard the breathing. It was slow and deep, coming from somewhere else in the chamber. Not human breathing, too loud, too wet, like something with lungs much bigger than ours. We turned our lights toward the sound. At the far end of the chamber there was another tunnel opening, and just inside it, barely visible in our flashlight beams, something moved. "What is that?" Jake whispered. It was hard to see clearly in the dim light, something large and dark pressed against the wall. As we watched, it moved again, sliding along the limestone without making any noise. "Hello?" I called out. "Are you hurt? We're here to help." The thing stopped moving. For a long moment, everything was quiet, except for that wet breathing sound. Then very slowly, 2 points of green light appeared in the darkness. Eyes, glowing green eyes, watching us. "That's not human," Jake said, backing away slowly. "Liz, that's not human." The eyes moved closer, and we could see more of the shape. Behind them, it was big, much bigger than a person. Maybe 8 feet tall, with a body that seemed to flow like water, and when it opened its mouth, we saw rows of teeth that gleamed in the green light. "We need to go," Jake said, "right now." But I couldn't move. I was staring at those eyes, and something about them seemed familiar. Like I'd seen them before, in dreams or nightmares. I couldn't quite remember. The creature made a sound. Not quite. A growl, not quite words. It echoed through the chamber, bouncing off the walls, until it surrounded us completely. "It's trying to talk," I said. "Liz, come on." Jake grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the tunnel we'd come from. We crawled as fast as we could, our equipment banging against the narrow walls. Behind us, we could hear the creature moving. It was following us, but moving much faster than we were. The scraping sound of something large forcing itself through the tight spaces. "The explosives," Jake panted as we crawled. "If it follows us into the main passage, I can set off some charges. Block the tunnel? No. There might be survivors down here. We can't trap them." We reached the main passage and ran toward the surface. Our lights bounced wildly as we stumbled over rocks and loose gravel. Behind us, the scraping sounds got louder. "It's gaining on us," Jake said. I looked back and saw a shadow moving in the tunnel behind us. The creature had reached the main passage too, and now it could move much faster. "This way," I said, pointing to a side tunnel I hadn't noticed before. "We can hide until it passes." We squeezed into the narrow opening just as the creature entered the main passage. From our hiding spot, we could see it clearly for the first time. It looked like a giant cat, but wrong in every way. Its fur was black and wet, hanging in clumps like it was rotting. Its legs were too long, its head too big, and those green eyes glowed like tiny suns in the darkness. But the strangest thing was how it moved. It didn't walk like an animal. It moved carefully, thoughtfully, like it was thinking about every step. "It's hunting us," Jake whispered. "It knows we're here." The creature stopped right in front of our hiding place. Its massive head turned slowly from side to side, and I could hear it sniffing the air, looking for our scent. Then it did something that made my blood freeze. It spoke, not words exactly, but sounds that were almost like words. And they sounded like voices I knew. My husband's voice, my daughter's voice, calling my name. "Elizabeth," it said in David's voice. "Elizabeth, where are you? Sarah needs you." I started to move toward the sound, but Jake grabbed me and held me back. "It's not them," he whispered. "It's mimicking voices. Don't listen to it." But hearing Sarah's voice again, even coming from that thing, made my heart break all over again. "Mommy," the creature said in my little girl's voice. "Mommy, I'm scared. Please come help me." Tears ran down my face. I knew it wasn't really Sarah, but part of me wanted to believe it so badly. The creature waited for a few more minutes, making those terrible familiar sounds. Then it moved on, disappearing deeper into the cave system. We stayed hidden for what felt like hours, listening to make sure it was really gone. Finally, Jake said it was safe to move. "We have to get out of here," he said. "Go back to the surface and call for help. Bring people with guns and proper equipment." But as we started back toward the entrance, we heard new sounds, more scraping, more of that wet breathing. And this time, it was coming from multiple directions. "There's more than one," I said. Jake checked his watch. "We've been down here for 6 hours. It'll be dark outside soon." That's when I realized the truth. These creatures, whatever they were, they didn't just live in the caves. They used the caves. The limestone tunnels were like highways for them, connecting to places all over the region. "Jake," I said slowly, "what if they come out at night? What if they hunt on the surface too?" He looked at me with horror in his eyes. The missing persons reports, all those hikers and campers who disappeared near the cave system over the years. Heard the scraping sounds again, closer now. And this time, there were voices mixed in. Dozens of voices calling out names and crying for help. "They're collecting voices," I said. "Every person they've caught, they learned their voice." The sounds were coming from all around us now. We were surrounded. "The explosives," Jake said, reaching for his pack. "I'm going to bring down this whole section, trap them in the deep caves." "What about us?" "There's a side passage about 50 yards ahead. If I time it right, we can reach it before the ceiling comes down." I could see the creatures moving in the darkness around us. More of those glowing green eyes, watching and waiting. "Do it," I told him, Jake set the charges quickly, his hands shaking as he worked. The creatures seemed to know what he was doing. They started moving faster, closing in on us. "Run!" Jake shouted. We ran toward the side passage as fast as we could. Behind us, the creatures howled, a sound like a dozen different voices screaming. At once, Jake triggered the explosion just as we dove into the narrow tunnel. The blast was deafening. Rocks fell from the ceiling and dust filled the air so thick we couldn't see. For a moment, I thought we were going to be buried alive. When the dust settled, the main passage was completely blocked. Tons of limestone had fallen, sealing off. The deep caves. Did we get them? I asked. Jake listened carefully. No scraping sounds, no breathing, no voices calling in the darkness. "I think so," he said. "I think we trapped them." But as we made our way toward the surface through the side tunnel, I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't stopped them all. We made it to the surface just as the sun was setting. The cool evening air felt like heaven after hours in those dark tunnels. Jake collapsed against a tree, breathing hard and covered in dust from the explosion. "We did it," he said. "We stopped them." But I wasn't so sure. Something felt wrong. The whole time we were climbing out, I kept thinking about those creatures and how they moved, how they seemed to know exactly where we were going. "Jake," I said, "how did they know about the side tunnel? It's like they were herding us toward it." He looked at me strangely. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. They could have caught us easily in that main passage, but they didn't. They let us run to exactly where you wanted to set the explosives." Jake shook his head. "You're overthinking this, Liz. We got lucky, that's all. But the more I thought about it, the more things didn't add up. The creatures were smart. Too smart. They used voices to confuse us. They moved through the caves like they owned them, and they seemed to be working together like they had a plan. What if we didn't trap them?" I said. "What if they wanted us to collapse that tunnel? Why would they want that?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet. We drove back to town in silence. Jake wanted to call the police, tell them about the missing college students. But what would we say? That we found their backpacks in a cave full of monsters? "They'll think we're crazy," Jake said. "Maybe we should go back tomorrow, bring cameras, get proof." But we never got the chance. The next morning, I woke up to sirens, fire trucks and ambulances racing through town. I turned on the radio and heard the news that made my blood turn cold. 3 families had been attacked during the night, parents and children, all found in their homes. The police said it looked like animal attacks, but they couldn't figure out what kind of animal could break through locked doors and windows. "Jake," I called him on the phone, "are you listening to the news?" "Yeah." His voice was quiet, scared. "Liz, you don't think the creatures, we didn't trap them all?" That's when I understood the truth. Those things in the cave weren't just hunting randomly. They were learning, watching, and they had been using the cave system to get close to town for years. The explosion hadn't trapped them. It had forced them to find new ways to hunt. "We have to go back," I told Jake. "We have to find the other entrances to the cave system. Stop them before they kill more people." Jake met me at the cave entrance that afternoon. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. His hands were shaking as he checked his equipment. "Maybe we should call for help," he said. "Get the National Guard or something, and tell them what? They'll never believe us without proof. We went back into the caves, but this time we took a different route." Jake knew about some smaller entrances that connected to the main system, places where the creatures might have escaped. The first tunnel we checked was empty, the second one too. But in the third tunnel, we found something that made my heart stop. Fresh scratches on the walls, and they led toward town. "They're using this tunnel to get to the surface," Jake said. "It comes out near the elementary school, where dozens of children spent their days playing and learning, completely unaware of the danger underneath their feet." "We have to stop them," I said. We followed the tunnel for what felt like miles. The scratches got deeper and more frequent as we went, and then we started finding other things, pieces of clothing, toys, a small backpack with a cartoon character on it. "Jake," I whispered, These are from children." He picked up a small shoe, a pink sneaker that would fit a 6-year-old. "Girl, just like the ones Sarah used to wear." That's when we heard the singing again. But this time, it wasn't coming from deep in the caves. It was coming from ahead of us, from the direction of town. We moved faster, following the sound. The tunnel was getting wider, and I could see light ahead. Real light, not that green glow from the cave chamber. We came out of the tunnel into a basement. An old basement with stone walls and a dirt floor. Above us, I could hear footsteps and voices, normal human voices. "Where are we?" Jake whispered. I looked around and saw stairs leading up to a wooden door. On the walls were old photographs and children's drawings. And in the corner was something that made me feel sick. Bones, small bones arranged in neat piles. "Jake," I said, my voice cracking, "I think we're under someone's house." We climbed the stairs carefully. The door at the top was unlocked. Jake opened it slowly, and we found ourselves in a kitchen. A normal kitchen with dishes in the sink and food on the counter, but there was blood on the floor. Fresh blood, still wet. "Hello?" Jake called out. "Is anyone here?" No answer, but we could hear movement upstairs. Slow, heavy footsteps walking back and forth. We climbed the stairs to the second floor. The hallway was dark, but we could see light coming from under one of the bedroom doors. Jake reached for the door handle, but I grabbed his arm. "Wait," I said, "listen." From inside the room came the sound of voices, but not human voices, the same mimicking sounds we'd heard in the cave. Someone was in that room talking to the creatures. "Who lives here?" I whispered. Jake checked the mailbox we'd seen by the front door. "According to this, Dr. Elizabeth Martinez." I stared at him. "That's impossible. That's my name." "What?" But before I could explain, the bedroom door opened, and standing there, covered in blood and smiling, was someone who looked exactly like me. "Hello, Elizabeth," she said in my voice. "I've been waiting for you." Jake stepped back, his face white with shock. "Liz, what's going on? How can there be two of you?" The other me laughed. "Don't you understand yet, Jake? There was never two of us. There was only ever one." I looked at my hands. They were covered in blood too. "When had that happened?" "The creatures," I said slowly. "They were never in the caves, were they?" "Oh, they were there," the other me said, "but not the way you remember. You created them, Elizabeth, in your mind, to explain what you were doing down there." Jake was backing toward the stairs. "Liz, what is she talking about?" "The missing people," I said, understanding flooding through me like cold water. "The college students. I didn't save them." "No," the other me said. "You didn't save them. You brought them down there. You told them you were a doctor, that you could help them. And then I remembered now, the medical bag, the surgical tools, the way I'd felt so calm and in control as I worked on them in that green-lit chamber. "I killed them," I whispered. Jake was at the top of the stairs now, his hand on the railing. "Liz, you're scaring me. What's happening?" But I wasn't Liz anymore. I was something else, something that had been pretending to be Liz for so long that even I had forgotten the truth. "The creatures were never monsters, Jake," I said, walking toward him. "I was the monster. I've always been the monster." He turned to run, but it was too late. I was so much faster than he was, and I knew exactly where to cut, to make it quick and clean, just like I'd learned in medical school. I'm back in the White Room now. Dr. Reynolds is sitting across from me, but he looks different today. Worried, scared even. "Elizabeth," he says, and quietly, "we need to talk about Jake Coleman." I blink and look around. The hospital room feels strange, like I'm seeing it for the first time. "How long have I been here?" "The clock on the wall says it's Tuesday, but what Tuesday?" "What month?" "Jake is my partner," I tell him. "We work together in the caves. We save people." Dr. Reynolds opens a thick file folder. His hands are shaking slightly. "Elizabeth, Jake Coleman died in 1971, 3 years before you claim your cave. Incident happened. That's not true. He was found in Mammoth Cave. His body was damaged, cut up with surgical tools. Dr. Reynolds looks directly at me. Your surgical tools, Elizabeth. Your medical bag was found at the scene, covered in his blood. The room starts spinning a little. I grip the arms of my chair. No, Jake and I escaped together. We stopped the creatures. We saved the town. There were no creatures, Elizabeth. There never were any creatures. He slides a photograph across the table. It shows Jake Coleman, young, smiling, wearing a cave rescue uniform, but at the bottom of the photo is a date, 1971, and stamped across it in red letters, deceased. You've been in this hospital for 3 years, Dr. Reynolds continues. Ever since the police found you in your basement, talking to empty spaces and feeding raw meat to things that weren't there. I stare at the photograph. Jake looks so real, so alive. But I remember everything. The caves, the blood, the green. Eyes watching us. Your mind created those memories to help you deal with what you really did. Dr. Reynolds pulls out more papers. Elizabeth, you killed 17 people over 2 years. Hikers, spelunkers, college students. You would meet them at the cave entrance, offer to guide them to safety, and then... I saved them, I whisper. I was protecting everyone from the creatures. You were the creature, Elizabeth. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I can suddenly smell that basement again. Damp stone, old blood, the raw meat I would arrange in careful piles. The college students, I say slowly. Jenny Morrison and her friends. You told them you were a doctor, that you could help them explore the deeper caves safely. They trusted you. Dr. Reynolds' voice is gentle but firm. You led them down there and you killed them, all 3 of them. Images flash through my mind, not of monsters and glowing eyes, but of something worse. My hands holding surgical tools, my voice calm and steady, telling frightened young people that everything would be okay. The families that were attacked in town, I say, after we trapped the creatures. There were no attacks, Elizabeth. That was part of your delusion too. But I remember the sirens, the news reports, the fear in Jake's voice when he called me. Check the police records, I tell him. Check the missing persons reports. Dr. Reynolds sighs. We did. There were missing persons reports. 17 of them over 2 years. And we found all 17 bodies in that cave chamber you talked about. The one with the green glow on the walls. The slime that glowed. Phosphorescent. Algae. It grows naturally in some cave systems, creates a dim green light. He pauses. But Elizabeth, the bodies we found there, they weren't killed by monsters. They were killed by someone with medical training. Someone who knew exactly where to cut. My medical bag, I can see it now, sitting in that glowing chamber. The tools inside, clean and sharp and ready to use. How many times had I opened that bag? How many times had I... My family, I say desperately. David and Sarah died in a car accident. That's why I started working in the caves. Dr. Reynolds shakes his head sadly. Elizabeth, your husband and daughter died during a medical procedure, a procedure you performed on them at home. You were trying to remove Sarah's appendix, but something went wrong. You lost them both. The room goes quiet, except for the sound of my breathing, fast, panicked breathing. That's impossible. I'm a trauma surgeon. I know what I'm doing. You were a trauma surgeon, but you lost your license 2 years before they died. You had been performing unauthorized surgeries on homeless people. The medical board said you were becoming unstable, obsessed with perfection. Perfect cuts, perfect procedures. Every person I brought to that cave chamber, I tried to make them perfect too. To fix them, like I couldn't fix David and Sarah. The cave rescue work was real, I insist. Jake and I saved people. You worked with Cave Rescue for 6 months, until they found out you were leading people into dangerous areas instead of away from them. Jake Coleman tried to stop you. He followed you into the caves to see what you were really doing. And the creatures killed him. You killed him, Elizabeth, just like all the others. I can see it now, like watching a movie in my head. Jake following me down into that glowing chamber. Jake seeing the bodies I had arranged so carefully on the cave floor. Jake reaching for his radio to call for help, and me moving so quickly with my scalpel. Just like I'd been trained to do. The explosion, I say. We set off charges to trap the creatures. There was no explosion. The cave chamber is still there, Elizabeth. The police have been through every inch of it. Dr. Reynolds stands up and walks to the window. Outside, I can see other patients walking around in the courtyard. Normal people who did normal, crazy things. Not like me. The voices, I say. The creatures could mimic voices. They sounded like David and Sarah. You have. Recording equipment in your room here. Old cassette tapes of your family talking. You play them every night and talk back to them like they're still alive. Everything is crumbling inside my head. The cave monsters, the heroic rescue mission, Jake's partnership, all of it breaking apart like it was made of glass. But I remember the creatures so clearly, the green eyes, the way they moved. Your mind needed to create monsters to explain what you were doing, because the truth was too horrible to accept. Dr. Reynolds sits back down and looks at me with sad, tired eyes. Elizabeth, you're not a victim of monster attacks. You're not a hero who saved the town. You're a serial killer who used your medical training to murder innocent people. And your mind created an elaborate fantasy to protect you from that truth. I sit there in the White Room staring at my hands. The same hands that held scalpels and cut into living people. The same hands that arranged their bodies in that glowing chamber like they were specimens in a laboratory. How many did you say? I whisper. 17 that we know of. But Elizabeth, there might be more. Other cave systems, other places you've forgotten about. 17 people who trusted me. Who thought I was going to help them? What happens now, I ask. Now we try to help you remember the truth. All of it. So the families can have closure. But I don't want to remember. The monster version was so much easier to live with. In that version, I was the hero. I was trying to save people. In the real version, I am the thing that parents tell their children about in scary stories. Dr. Reynolds, I say quietly, what if I remember more? What if I tell you about other places, other people I hurt? Then we'll deal with it together. I nod. But inside I'm thinking about all the dark places I know about, all the caves and basements and hidden spots where a person could take someone and never be found. The creatures, I say one more time. They felt so real. I know, Dr. Reynolds says, but Elizabeth, the most dangerous monsters are the ones that look just like us. He's right. I know he's right, because I've been looking at one in the mirror for 3 years. My name is Vincent Russo, but everyone calls me Vinny. If you're reading this letter, then I'm probably dead. I'm writing this because someone needs to know what really happened in the Pine Barrens that night in 1976. Someone needs to know the truth about the Jersey Devil and about what I did. It's August 15th, and there's a big storm coming. The weatherman on TV keeps saying it's going to be the worst storm to hit New Jersey in 20 years. They're telling people to leave their homes, especially folks living near the Pine Barrens. But I'm not leaving. I can't leave. Not yet. I'm 42 years old, and I used to be a firefighter. Used to be, because I'm not anymore. They took my badge away 3 years ago after what happened at the warehouse. 3 good men died that night because of me. 3 men with families, with kids who won't see their daddies come home ever again. The storm outside is getting worse. The wind is howling like something angry, and the rain is hitting my windows so hard it sounds like bullets. But that's not what scares me. What scares me is that the Pine Barrens have gone completely quiet. No birds singing, no animals making noise, nothing. It's like everything with sense ran away. People around here have always talked about the Jersey Devil. They say it's a monster that lives in the Pine Barrens, has wings like a bat, claws like a bear, and breathes fire. Most folks think it's just a story to scare kids, but lately people have been seeing things, hearing things, and they all say the same thing. It only comes out during big storms. 2 days ago, a park ranger named Eddie Santos came to see me. Eddie's young, maybe 23 years old. He has dark hair and serious eyes that remind me of someone, but I can't remember. He said campers have been going missing in the Pine Barrens. He said he found their camps burned to the ground with claw marks on the trees. Mr. Russo, he said, I know you used to be a firefighter. I know you understand fire better than anyone. Will you help me figure out what's happening out there? I should have said no. I should have told him I don't help people anymore because every time I try, someone gets hurt. But something in his voice made me say yes. Maybe it was because he called me Mr. Russo instead of just Vinny. Nobody shows me respect like that anymore. The thing is, I've been having dreams about the Pine Barrens for weeks now. In my dreams, I hear voices calling my name. They sound like Tommy Bradley, Mike Chen, and Bobby Martinez, the 3 firefighters who died in the warehouse because I was too scared to do my job right. In my dreams, they're asking me why I let them die. They're asking me why I chose money over their lives. But these aren't just dreams anymore. Yesterday, when I was walking to the store, I smelled something that made my blood turn cold. Sulfur. The same smell that fills the air when something burns really hot. The same smell that was everywhere that night at the warehouse. Eddie says the smell is strongest in the Pine Barrens. He says it gets worse when the wind picks up. He thinks the Jersey Devil is real, and he thinks it's getting ready to do something terrible during this storm. I don't believe in monsters, at least not the kind with wings and claws. The real monsters look like regular people. They wear firefighter uniforms and take money to let buildings burn. They make choices that get good people killed. I should know. I am one. But Eddie is convinced something evil is out there. He showed me pictures he took with his camera. Burned trees twisted into weird shapes, holes in the ground that smell like hell itself, and footprints, big ones, with claws leading deeper into the woods. The old-timers say it comes every 20 years, Eddie told me. Always during the worst storms, always when people are scared and can't get help. 20 years. That would make it 1956 the last time. I was just a kid then, but I remember my dad talking about strange fires in the Pine Barrens that year. Fires that burned green and couldn't be put out with water. The radio keeps crackling with emergency calls from people in the Pine Barrens, but then the calls just stop, like someone or something is cutting them off. The last call I heard clearly was from a hunter. He was screaming about sulfur and burning. Then nothing but static. I've been a firefighter for 20 years. I know fire. I know how it acts, how it spreads, how it kills. But what Eddie is describing doesn't sound like any fire I've ever seen. It sounds like something that wants to burn, something that chooses what to destroy. My hands are shaking as I write this. Not because I'm scared of some monster in the woods. I'm shaking because I know Eddie is right about one thing. Something evil is coming during this storm. But I don't think it's the Jersey Devil. I think it's my past finally catching up to me. The thunder outside is getting louder. Eddie will be here soon to pick me up. We're going into the Pine Barrens tonight, in the middle of the worst storm in 20 years, to hunt for a monster that might not even exist. But I'm starting to think the real monster has been inside me, all along. If something happens to me out there, if you find this letter, just remember one thing. Sometimes the people who are supposed to save lives are the ones who destroy them instead. Sometimes the real devils don't have wings or claws. Sometimes they just have guilt that burns hotter than any fire. The storm is here. Eddie's truck just pulled up outside. Time to go face whatever's waiting for us in those dark woods. God help us both. Eddie's truck smelled like cigarettes and wet pine needles. As we drove through the rain toward the Pine Barrens, I kept stealing looks at him. There was something about his face that bothered me, something familiar that I couldn't quite place. "Tell me about the warehouse fire," he said suddenly. My hands got cold. Nobody talked about the warehouse fire anymore. Not even the other firefighters, who knew what really happened. "Why do you want to know about that?" I asked. Eddie kept his eyes on the road. The windshield wipers were working hard against the rain. "Because I think it's connected to what's happening in the Pine Barrens. The way things burn, the way people disappear." I lit a cigarette with shaking hands. I hadn't talked about that night in 3 years, but something about Eddie made me want to tell the truth. Maybe it was because I was tired of carrying the secret. Alone. "It was September 12th, 1973, I said. "A warehouse on the south side of Newark. We got the call around 11 p.m. The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. I could still smell the smoke, still hear the sirens, still see the orange glow lighting up the night sky. The building was already half gone when we got there," I continued. "But our equipment said there were still people inside. 3 of my men, Tommy Bradley, Mike Chen, and Bobby Martinez, they wanted to go in right away. Eddie turned down a dark road that led deeper into the woods. But you stopped them." "Yeah, I stopped them." I took a long drag from my cigarette. "See, I knew something they didn't know. The warehouse owner was Jimmy Romano, and Jimmy Romano had made me a deal." The rain was coming down harder now. Through the trees, I could see flashes of lightning in the distance. "What kind of deal?" Eddie asked quietly. I closed my eyes. This was the part I'd never told anyone. Not the fire marshal, not the police, not even my wife before she left me. Jimmy owed money to some bad people, a lot of money. So he decided to burn down his own warehouse and collect the insurance. He paid me $5,000 to make sure the fire department took their time getting inside. Eddie didn't say anything. He just kept driving. I told my men there might be gas tanks inside. I said we had to wait for the hazmat team. But there were no gas tanks. I just needed to give the fire time to destroy all the evidence of Jimmy's insurance fraud. The truck hit a pothole, and I nearly bit my tongue. My hands were shaking worse now. 20 minutes, I said. I made them wait 20 minutes while I knew people were dying inside. And when we finally went in, it was too late. "How many people died?" Eddie asked. 5. 3 homeless guys who'd been sleeping in the warehouse. And Tommy Bradley and Mike Chen, they went in without air masks because they were so desperate to save someone, anyone. Bobby Martinez tried to get them out, but the ceiling came down on all of them. I threw my cigarette out the window and immediately lit another one. The worst part, there was nobody left to save. Those 3 homeless guys were already dead from the smoke. My men died for nothing. They died because I was greedy and scared. Eddie pulled the truck over to the side of the road. Through the rain, I could see the dark outline of pine trees stretching as far as the eye could see. We were here. The Pine Barrens. "What happened to Jimmy Romano?" Eddie asked. "Nothing. The fire destroyed all the evidence, just like he wanted. He got his insurance money and disappeared. I got fired from the fire department and my wife left me. And Tommy, Mike, and Bobby got buried." Eddie turned off the engine. In the silence, all I could hear was rain hitting the roof and my own heavy breathing. "You know what the really sick part is?" I said. "Sometimes I dream that I'm back in that warehouse, but in my dreams I don't hesitate. I send my men in right away, and they save those homeless guys, and everybody goes home safe. But then you wake up," Eddie said. "Yeah, then I wake up and they're still dead." Eddie opened his door, and cold, wet air rushed into the truck. "Come on, we need to find those missing campers." As I got out of the truck, lightning flashed across the sky. For just a second, I could see Eddie's face clearly in the white light. That's when I realized why he looked so familiar. He had the same eyes as Bobby Martinez, the same dark hair, the same way of holding his mouth when he was thinking hard about something. But that was impossible. Bobby Martinez died in the warehouse fire. He didn't have any kids, or did he? Eddie, I called out as he grabbed flashlights from the back of the truck. "What's your last name again?" He turned around, and in the next flash of lightning, I saw something in his eyes that made my blood turn cold. Not anger exactly, something worse. "Santos," he said. "Eddie Santos, but my real last name is Martinez. Bobby Martinez was my father." The rain kept falling, but suddenly I couldn't hear it anymore. All I could hear was my own heart beating like a drum. "You're Bobby's son," I said. "Yeah, and you're the man who killed him." Eddie turned and started walking into the dark woods. After a moment, I followed him. What else could I do? He was right. I had killed his father. I'd killed all of them. As we walked deeper into the Pine Barrens, I realized this wasn't about finding missing campers at all. This was about something else entirely. This was about paying for what I'd done. The trees seemed to close in around us as we walked. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, something was waiting. Maybe it was the Jersey Devil. Maybe it was just justice finally catching up to me. Either way, I knew I deserved whatever was coming. The rain kept falling, washing away our footprints as we disappeared into the woods. The first thing I noticed when we walked into the Pine Barrens was the smell. It wasn't just the regular forest smell of wet leaves and dirt. There was something else mixed in, something that made my nose burn and my eyes water. Sulfur, the same smell from my nightmares. "You smell that?" I asked Eddie. He nodded and kept walking. His flashlight cut through the darkness ahead of us, but it didn't seem to help much. The beam just got swallowed up by the thick trees and heavy rain. "It gets stronger as we go deeper," Eddie said. "I've been out here 3 times this week. Each time, the smell gets worse." We'd been walking for maybe 20 minutes when Eddie stopped suddenly. He pointed his flashlight at something off to our right. "There," he said. "That's where the first camp was." I followed the light and saw what was left of a campsite. The tent was completely gone, just a black circle on the ground where it used to be. The trees around it were burned too, but in a weird way. The burn marks went up the trunk in a spiral, like someone had twisted fire around each tree. "I've never seen burns like this," I said, kneeling down to get a closer look. "This isn't how normal fireworks." Eddie crouched down next to me. "The fire department said it was lightning, but look at this." He shined his light on deep scratches in the bark of the nearest tree. They were too big to be from any animal I knew about, and there were 4 of them side by side like claw marks. "What kind of animal has claws this big?" I asked. "That's what I want to know." We kept walking deeper into the woods. Every few hundred yards, we'd find another burned campsite. Always the same thing. Black circles on the ground, spiral burns on the trees, and those deep claw marks. But the weird thing was how quiet everything was. In all my years camping and hiking, I'd never been in woods this quiet. No owls hooting, no insects buzzing, no small animals moving through the bushes. It was like every living thing had packed up and left. "Where are all the animals?" I asked. Eddie stopped walking and turned around. "That's another strange thing. 2 days ago, people started calling the Park Service. They said deer and rabbits were running out of the Pine Barrens like something was chasing them. Hundreds of them, all heading toward the highway." "Animals can sense things before we can," I said. "Maybe they knew this storm was coming. Maybe. Or maybe they knew something else was coming." We came to a small clearing where someone had built a fire pit out of rocks. But the rocks were cracked and black, like they'd been heated to a temperature way hotter than any normal campfire could reach. Eddie sat down on a fallen log and pulled out a thermos of coffee. "Want some? It's going to be a long night." I took the cup he offered me. The coffee was still hot and it felt good going down, but as soon as I tasted it, I started having that feeling again, like I was being watched. "Eddie," I said, "how long have you known who I was?" He looked at me over his coffee cup. "Since the day I got hired at the Park Service. I asked for this job specifically so I could work in the Pine Barrens, so I could wait for the right time." "The right time for what?" To make you pay for what you did to my dad. The rain was still coming down, but it seemed quieter now, like the storm was holding its breath. Your dad was a good man, I said. He didn't deserve what happened to him. No, he didn't. He had a wife and a baby son. He had a whole life ahead of him. But you took that away. I set down my coffee cup. My hands were shaking again. So what's your plan? You going to kill me out here and say the Jersey Devil did it? Eddie smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. I don't need to kill you, Mr. Russo. I just need to make sure you face the truth about what you are. That's when I heard it. A sound that made every hair on my body stand up. It started low, like wind blowing through the trees. But then it got louder and higher until it sounded like someone screaming, but not a human scream. Something else. Eddie jumped to his feet and grabbed his flashlight. It's here! What's here? But before he could answer, we both saw it. 2 red lights floating about 10 feet off the ground, maybe 50 yards away through the trees. They looked like eyes, but they were too big and too bright to be from any animal. Jesus Christ, I whispered. The red lights started moving toward us, not walking or running, but floating. And as they got closer, I could see more of the thing they belonged to. It was huge, maybe 7 feet tall, with wings that stretched out. On both sides, its body looked wrong, like parts of different animals stuck together. And when it opened its mouth, I could see flames dancing inside. The Jersey Devil, Eddie said, but his voice sounded strange, like he was surprised to see it too. The thing let out another scream, and this time I could feel it in my chest, like someone had reached inside me and squeezed my heart. We need to run, I said, but Eddie didn't move. He just stood there, staring at the creature as it floated closer. Eddie, we need to go. Wait, he said. Something's not right about this. The Jersey Devil was maybe 20 feet away now. I could smell the sulfur coming off it in waves, but Eddie was right. Something was off. The way it moved was too smooth, too controlled, and those red eyes weren't blinking the way real eyes should. Those aren't real eyes, I said. They're lights. Eddie turned to look at me. What? Those are electric lights. I can see the wires. That's when the Jersey Devil stopped moving and made a sound like a machine shutting down. The red lights went out, and the whole thing crashed to the ground with a loud metal clang. Eddie and I ran over to where it fell. Up close, I could see what it really was. Metal and wires and motors, all covered up with fake fur and feathers. Someone had built a robot that looked like the Jersey Devil. This is a machine, I said. Someone's been controlling it. Eddie knelt down next to the broken robot. He looked confused and angry at the same time. I don't understand, he said. I've been seeing this thing for weeks. I thought... He stopped talking and looked up at me with fear in his eyes. If this is fake, he said, then what's been making all those sounds? What burned those campsites? That's when we heard footsteps behind us. Slow, heavy footsteps coming through the trees. We turned around and saw a man walking toward us through the rain. He was tall and thin, wearing a long, dark coat, and when the lightning flashed, I could see his face clearly. It was Jimmy Romano, the man who had paid me to let the warehouse burn. The man who had disappeared 3 years ago. He was smiling. "Hello, Vinny," he said. "I've been waiting for you." Jimmy Romano looked exactly the same as he did 3 years ago. Same thin face, same cold eyes, same way of smiling that made my skin crawl. The only difference was that now he was soaking wet from the rain. "You look surprised to see me, Vinny," he said, walking closer to us. "Didn't think I'd forgotten about our old friendship, did you?" I couldn't speak. My mouth felt like it was full of cotton. Jimmy Romano was supposed to be long gone, living somewhere far away with his insurance money. "What are you doing here?" I finally managed to say. Jimmy looked down at the broken robot lying in the mud. "Well, that's a long story. But I think we have time, don't we, Eddie?" Eddie was staring at Jimmy like he'd seen a ghost. "Who is this guy?" "This is Jimmy Romano," I said. "The man who paid me to let the warehouse burn." Jimmy laughed. Oh, I'm much more than that now. You see, after I got my insurance money, I had a lot of time to think, time to plan, and I realized something important. He kicked the broken jersey, devil robot with his foot. I realized that you and I weren't finished with each other, not by a long shot. I don't understand, Eddie said. If you're Jimmy Romano, then why are you here? Why did you build this fake monster? Jimmy smiled that horrible smile again, because I wanted to give Vinny here exactly what he deserves. A chance to be a hero again, a chance to save someone's life, and then I wanted to take that chance away from him. The rain was getting harder. I could barely see Jimmy's face through the water streaming down from my hair. You've been watching me, I said, for 3 years. Not just watching, planning. Do you know how hard it is to build a robot like this? How much money it costs? How many people you have to pay to keep quiet? Jimmy reached into his coat and pulled out a small black box with buttons on it. A remote control. I've been testing this thing for months, he said, making sure it looked scary enough, making sure the sounds were just right, making sure people would believe in the Jersey Devil. Eddie was looking back and forth between me and Jimmy. But why? What's the point of all this? The point, Jimmy said, is to destroy Vinny Russo completely, not just his body, his soul. He pressed a button on the remote control. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a sound like a generator starting up. You see, Eddie, your new friend Vinny has a problem. He thinks he's a coward. He thinks he let people die because he was scared and greedy. But that's not the whole truth. Jimmy started walking in a circle around us, still holding the remote control. The whole truth is that Vinny wanted those people to die. Deep down, he enjoyed watching that warehouse burn. He enjoyed knowing that people were dying while he stood outside and did nothing. That's not true, I said, but my voice sounded weak, even to me. Oh, but it is. Remember what you told me that night, Vinny. You said you were tired of risking your life for people who didn't appreciate it. You said you were tired of being the good guy. The generator sound was getting louder, and now I could hear something else too. Voices, familiar voices. Vinny, called a voice through the rain. Vinny, why didn't you save us? It was Tommy Bradley's voice, but Tommy was dead. We trusted you, said another voice, Mike Chen. We trusted you and you let us die. Vinny, said a third voice, Bobby Martinez, Eddie's father. My son grew up without a dad because of you. Eddie spun around, trying to see where the voices were coming from. What's happening? How are you doing this? Jimmy laughed. Speakers hidden in the trees. Voice recordings I got from their families. Amazing what grieving people will give you if you tell them you're making a memorial video. The voices kept calling my name, accusing me, blaming me, and the worst part was that everything they said was true. You're sick, I said to Jimmy. Or am I just showing you what you really are? A killer who wears a hero's uniform. Jimmy pressed another button on his remote. The voices stopped, but now I could hear something else, a crackling sound. The smell of smoke started drifting through the air. I've been setting fires all around these woods for weeks, Jimmy said. Small ones at first, testing, learning how to make them look supernatural. But tonight I'm going to burn down the whole Pine Barrens. Eddie grabbed my arm. We need to get out of here. Oh, you can try, Jimmy said. But I've blocked all the roads out, cut down trees across every path. The only way out is through the old Quaker meeting house about a mile north of here. And that's where I'll be waiting. The smoke was getting thicker. Through the trees, I could see orange light flickering. Real fire this time, not just the fake flames from his robot. Why the meeting house? I asked. Because that's where this story ends, Vinny. That's where you finally pay for what you did. Not just to those firefighters, but to all the people whose lives you've destroyed. Jimmy started backing away from us, toward the trees. You have maybe 20 minutes before the fire gets here, he called out. 20 minutes to decide if you're going to die a coward or finally try to be the hero you pretended to be. Then he disappeared into the darkness, leaving me and Eddie alone with the broken robot and the growing smell of smoke. Eddie was pulling on my arm. "Come on, we have to go." But I couldn't move, because I realized something terrible. Jimmy was right about me. I had wanted those people to die. Deep down, in a place I never wanted to look, I had been glad when the warehouse burned. Glad to finally stop pretending I cared about saving people. "Vinny," Eddie shouted, "the fire's coming." I looked at him, this young man whose father I had killed, this young man who had every right to hate me. And I made a decision. "Eddie," I said, "I need to tell you something. Your father didn't die because I was scared or greedy. He died because I wanted him to die. I wanted all of them to die." Eddie stared at me. "What?" "I'm not a good man who made a bad choice. I'm a bad man who spent years pretending to be good. And Jimmy's right. I deserve whatever's waiting for me at that meeting house." The fire was getting closer. I could hear trees crackling and falling somewhere behind us. "But you don't deserve it," I said. "You need to find another way out of here. Leave me and save yourself." Eddie looked at me for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. "No," he said. "We're going to that meeting house together because I want to see how this ends." And that's when I realized that Eddie wasn't the innocent young man I thought he was. There was something in his eyes that looked a lot like Jimmy. Romano's smile. Something that told me I wasn't the only one with secrets. We ran through the burning woods toward the old Quaker meeting house. The smoke was so thick I could barely breathe, and the heat was getting worse with every step. Behind us, I could hear trees crashing down as the fire ate them up. Eddie ran ahead of me, moving like he knew exactly where he was going. That should have told me something, but I was too busy trying not to die to think about it. When we got to the meeting house, I could see why Jimmy had picked this place. It was old and made of wood, sitting in a clearing with no other buildings around it. If someone wanted to trap people and burn them alive, this was the perfect spot. Jimmy was waiting for us on the front steps, still holding his remote control. He wasn't even breathing hard. "Right on time," he said. "I was starting to think you got lost." "Let Eddie go," I said. "This is between you and me." Jimmy laughed. "Oh, but Eddie's the most important part of this whole thing. Aren't you, Eddie?" Eddie stopped running and turned to look at me. That strange smile was back on his face. "I'm sorry, Mr. Russo," he said, "but I lied to you about a few things." My heart sank. "What things?" "Well, for starters, my name isn't really Eddie Santos. It's Eduardo Romano. Jimmy is my uncle. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach." "You're Jimmy's nephew." "That's right," Jimmy said. "Eddie here has been working with me for months, planning this whole thing, making sure you'd come out to the Pine Barrens tonight." Eddie nodded. "I really am Bobby Martinez's son." That part was true. "But after my dad died, my mom married Jimmy's brother. Jimmy became like a second father to me." The fire was getting closer to the meeting house. I could see flames starting to lick at the trees around the clearing. "So this was all planned," I said. "The missing campers, the Jersey Devil sightings, everything." "The campers were just some guys Jimmy paid to disappear for a few weeks," Eddie said. "The robot, the voices, the fires, all fake. Well, except for tonight's fire. This one's real." Jimmy walked up the steps and opened the door to the meeting house. "Come inside, Vinny. Time for the final act." I didn't want to go in there. I knew if I walked through that door, I probably wasn't coming back out. But the fire was all around us now. There was nowhere else to go. The inside of the meeting house was just one big room with old wooden benches and a stone fireplace. Jimmy had set up more equipment in here, speakers, lights, and what looked like cans of gasoline. "You know what I realized after I got away with burning down my warehouse?" Jimmy said, closing the door behind us. "I realized I really enjoyed it. The power of controlling fire, the power of deciding who lives and who dies." He poured gasoline from one of the cans in a circle around the room. "So I decided to become a professional. I've burned down 12 buildings in the last 3 years. Apartment buildings, schools, a hospital, hundreds of people dead, and nobody ever suspected me." "You're insane," I said. "Maybe, but I'm also rich, and I'm about to be famous. After tonight, people will talk about the Pine Barrens fire for years, how the Jersey Devil came back and burned down the whole forest. Eddie was standing by the fireplace, not saying anything. But I could see tears in his eyes. "Eddie," I said, "you don't have to do this. Your father wouldn't want you to become a killer." "My father is dead because of you," Eddie said. "You took him away from me when I was just a baby. I never got to know him. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed him. I'm sorry I failed all of them." Jimmy lit a match and held it over the gasoline. "Sorry doesn't bring back the dead, Vinny." That's when I realized something. Jimmy was going to kill Eddie too. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about covering up all his other crimes. Eddie was a witness, and witnesses were dangerous. "Jimmy," I said, "you're planning to kill Eddie after I'm dead, aren't you?" Jimmy's smile got wider. "I can't have any loose ends." Eddie's face went white. "Uncle Jimmy, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you know too much, kid. You helped me plan this, which makes you an accomplice to murder. I can't risk you getting scared and confessing someday." Eddie backed away from the fireplace. "But I'm family. Family is just another word for people who can hurt you the most." Jimmy dropped the match. The gasoline caught fire immediately, creating a wall of flames around the room. The heat hit my face like a slap. We were trapped inside a burning building, just like the people in Jimmy's warehouse 3 years ago. But this time, I wasn't going to hesitate. I grabbed the iron poker from next to the fireplace and swung it at Jimmy's head. He ducked, but I caught him in the shoulder. He dropped the remote control and fell to his knees. "Eddie!" I shouted over. The roar of the flames. "Get that remote, maybe we can call for help." But Eddie wasn't moving toward the remote. He was moving toward one of the windows. "I can't," he yelled. "I'm sorry, but I can't." The window was too high and too small. He couldn't get through it. The fire was spreading across the ceiling now, and pieces of burning wood were starting to fall. I looked at Jimmy, who was holding his shoulder and glaring at me with pure hate. "You always were too stupid to know when you were beaten," he said. I looked at Eddie, who was crying and trying to break the window with his bare hands. And I made the hardest decision of my life. I picked up Jimmy Romano and threw him toward the door. Then I grabbed Eddie and pushed him in the same direction. "The door!" I yelled. "It's our only chance." The three of us crashed through the burning door and fell out onto the steps of the meeting house. Behind us, the whole building went up in flames like it was made of paper. We were all on fire. Our clothes, our hair, everything. We rolled around in the mud, trying to put out the flames. When the fire on my clothes was finally out, I looked around. Jimmy was lying still about 10 feet away. The poker had hurt him worse than I thought. Eddie was sitting up, holding his burned hands and crying. "Why did you save me?" he asked. "After everything I did to you?" I sat up and looked at the burning meeting house. The whole forest around us was on fire now. "Because," I said, "your father would have done the same thing. He would have saved both of us, even Jimmy. That's the kind of man he was." Eddie wiped his eyes with the back of his burned hand. "I wanted to hate you so much, but I can't. Not anymore." "You don't have to forgive me," I said. "But you don't have to become like me either, or like Jimmy." We sat there in the mud, watching the Pine Barrens burn. In the distance, I could hear sirens. Someone had seen the fire and called for help. Jimmy Romano was still alive, but barely. The doctor said later that he'd probably never walk again. He confessed to everything. The warehouse fire, the other buildings he'd burned, the people he'd killed. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Eddie went to live with his aunt in California. He writes me letters sometimes. He's going to college now, studying to be a teacher. He says he wants to help kids instead of hurting people. For me, I'm still here in New Jersey, still carrying the guilt of what I did 3 years ago. But something changed that night in the Pine Barrens. I learned that being sorry isn't enough. You have to do something about it. I volunteer at the fire department now. I can't be a firefighter anymore because of my burned lungs. but I can teach new recruits. I tell them about the warehouse fire. I tell them about the choices I made and why they were wrong. Some people say the Pine Barrens are haunted now. They say on stormy nights you can still see strange lights in the trees and hear voices calling for help. Maybe that's true. Maybe. The ghosts of Tommy Bradley, Mike Chen and Bobby Martinez are still out there, waiting for justice. But I think the real ghosts are the ones we carry inside us. The voices of the people we failed to save. The guilt that burns hotter than any fire. The Jersey Devil was never real. But the devils we create ourselves, those are the ones that can destroy us. I'm 45 years old now, and I've learned something important. Redemption isn't about being forgiven. It's about choosing to do better, even when nobody's watching, even when it's too late to matter. The Pine Barrens grew back, like forests always do after fires. Green and alive and full of hope. Maybe people can grow back too. Maybe we all get a second chance to be the heroes we should have been the first time. I'm still working on mine. My name is Marcus Thompson, and in 3 hours they're going to kill me. I'm sitting in this cold cell, watching the snow fall outside my window. Big, fat flakes that stick to the glass and melt slowly. It's peaceful, really. More peaceful than I deserve, they tell me. Father McKenna sits across from me on a metal chair. He's a good man, I can tell. His hands shake a little when he holds his coffee cup. Maybe it's the cold, or maybe it's because of what I did. What they say I did. Tell me about the forest, Marcus, he says softly. His voice is kind, not like the lawyers or the guards. Tell me what really happened out there. I close my eyes and I can see it all again. The trees, the snow, the thing that hunted me for 3 days in the Olympic National Forest back in 1967. You won't believe me, Father, I say. Nobody did. That's why I'm here. He leans forward. Try me. The snow keeps falling outside. It reminds me of that morning when it all started. When I walked into those woods as one man and came out as something else entirely. Something broken. I was a good soldier once, I begin. Korea, did my duty, came home to my wife, got a job at the lumber mill, normal life, you know, but after what I saw over there, sometimes a man needs to get away. Find some quiet. Father McKenna nods. He understands about war, I think, about the things that follow you home. So I took my dog Rex and headed up to Olympic National Forest for a week. Just me and him and the trees. I knew those woods pretty well. Used to go hunting with my daddy. When I was small, figured I'd do some fishing, maybe bag a deer, clear my head. I look at my hands. They're old now, wrinkled and spotted. But I can still see the scars on my knuckles from that last night in the woods. The night everything went wrong. I set up camp near Miller Creek, about 15 miles from the nearest road. Beautiful spot. Rex loved it. Kept running around, sniffing. Everything. Happy as could be. My voice gets quiet. That was before we found the signs. Father McKenna sets down his coffee. What kind of signs? Claw marks on the trees. Bigger than any bear I ever seen. And the smell, I shake my head, like something had died and been left to rot. But not just died, Father. Torn apart. The snow is getting heavier now. I can barely see the yard through the white. The old native. Folks, they got stories about things that live in those deep woods. Things that used to be people but ain't anymore. Things that are always hungry. Wendigo, Father McKenna whispers. I look at him, surprised. You know the stories. I've heard them. But Marcus, those are just legends. Old tales to scare children. I laugh, but there's no humor in it. That's what I thought too, Father. Right. Up until one of them started hunting me. The guard walks by outside my cell. His keys jingle as he passes. Soon, those keys will unlock my door for the last time. But right now, all I want is for someone to hear my story. To understand that I'm not the monster they think I am. It was watching me from the first day. I continue. I could feel its eyes on me when I was setting up camp. Rex felt it too, kept whining and staying close to my leg. Dogs know things. You know, they can sense evil. Father McKenna writes something in his little notebook. What did you do? What any sensible man would do. I packed up and tried to leave. I paused, remembering, but the thing wouldn't let me go. Every trail I took led me back to the same clearing. Every path just circled around, like the forest itself was working against me. The priest looks up from his writing. His eyes are worried now. Marcus, I need to ask you something important. The families of those people they found in the woods. They deserve to know what happened to their loved ones. My stomach goes cold. I already told the police, told the lawyers, told everyone who'd listen. I didn't kill those people, Father. The Wendigo did. I was trying to survive just like they were. But the evidence is wrong. I slam my hand on the table. The sound echoes in the small cell. I know how this looks. I know what they found, but I was fighting for my life out there, fighting something that shouldn't exist. Father McKenna is quiet for a long moment. Outside, the snow keeps falling. Tell me the rest, he says finally. Tell me everything that happened in those 3 days. I take a deep breath. The air in here, and tastes stale, nothing like the clean mountain air I remember from that morning. The morning when I thought I was just going fishing. All right, Father, but you asked for the truth, and the truth is going to sound crazy. The truth is going to make you think I belong right here in this cell. I close my eyes again, and I'm back there. Back in the woods with Rex before everything went to hell. It started on the second morning. That second morning started perfect. I remember waking up to the sound of Rex sniffing around outside my tent. The sun was just coming up through the big Douglas fir trees, making everything look golden and clean. I unzipped my tent and stepped out into the crisp air. My breath made little clouds, and the ground crunched under my boots. There was frost on everything, my camping gear, the rocks, even Rex's water bowl. Beautiful morning, the kind that makes you glad to be alive. Come here, boy, I called to Rex. He came running over, tail wagging, happy as always. Rex was a good dog, German Shepherd, about 4 years old, smart as a whip and loyal as they come. My wife never liked him much, said he was too big for the house, but Rex and me, we understood each other. I made some coffee on my camp stove and opened a can of beans for breakfast. Rex got his kibble and some leftover bacon from the night before. We sat there together, just enjoying the quiet. No cars, no neighbors, no mill whistle telling me it was time for work. Just peace. The forest was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. That should have been my first warning, Father. Woods are never completely quiet. There should be birds singing, squirrels chattering, something. But it was like someone had pressed a mute button on the whole world. After breakfast, I decided to do some exploring. I'd been to this spot before, but not for a few years. Wanted to see if the old deer trails were still there. Maybe find a good fishing spot along the creek. I packed my backpack with some lunch, water, and my .30-06 rifle. Rex followed me as I headed north, away from camp. The trees were huge up. Here, some of them probably 100 years old or more. They blocked out most of the sky, making everything feel closed in and shadowy. We'd been walking for maybe an hour when I noticed something strange. My footprints in the frost from earlier were everywhere, not just on the trail behind us, but ahead of us too, like I'd already walked this exact same path before. That's weird, I said out loud. Rex looked up at me, ears perked. Dogs can tell. When something's bothering you, I knelt down and looked closer at the prints. They were definitely mine. Same boot size, same wear pattern on the sole. But I knew for sure I hadn't been this way yet today. I'd been very careful to head straight. North from camp, Rex started whining a little. He kept looking back the way we came, then forward, then back again. His nose was twitching like he smelled something that worried him. What is it, boy? I asked, but he just whined some more. I stood up and looked around. The trees all looked the same to me, but my daddy had taught me to pay attention to landmarks. There was a big fallen log shaped like an L, about 50 yards to our left. I was sure I'd never seen it before, but there were my footprints leading right past it. My compass said we were still heading north, but something felt wrong. I checked it again, tapping the glass. The needle spun a little, then settled back. To north. Maybe it got knocked around in my pack. We kept walking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd been here before. Every tree, every rock, every little clearing looked familiar, like I was walking through a dream of somewhere I'd already been. Rex was getting more and more nervous. He kept stopping and looking around, his hackles starting to rise. When a dog's hackles go up, you pay attention. Dogs know things people don't. Easy, Rex, I said, reaching down to pat his head. Just a new place, that's all. But it wasn't new, was it? My footprints were proof of that. Around noon, I found a nice spot by the creek to eat lunch. The water was clear and cold, running over smooth rocks. Perfect trout water. I sat on a boulder and unpacked my sandwich while Rex lapped up some water. Downstream, that's when I saw them. More footprints in the mud by the creek. But these weren't mine. These were huge, maybe size 15 or 16 boots, and they were deep, like whoever made them was carrying something heavy, or like they weighed a lot, more than any normal person. The prints went along the creek for maybe 20 feet, then just stopped, like whoever made them had vanished into thin air. Rex came over and sniffed at the prints. All his fur stood up and he backed away, growling low in his throat. I'd never seen him act like that before. Rex wasn't scared of anything, not thunderstorms, not other dogs, not even the neighbor's mean cat that used to torment him. What's got you spooked, boy? I asked, but I was starting to feel spooked too. The forest was still too quiet. The footprints didn't make sense, and there was a smell in the air now, faint but getting stronger. Sweet and rotten, like meat that had gone bad. I packed up my lunch without finishing it. Come on, Rex, let's head back to camp. We started back the way we came, but after walking for what felt like hours, I realized we weren't getting any closer to camp. The sun was getting lower in the sky, and I should have been seeing familiar landmarks by now. I checked my compass again, still pointing north, but north should have taken us back to camp. Instead, we seemed to be walking deeper into the forest. Rex was panting hard, even though it wasn't hot. His eyes kept darting back and forth like he was watching for something that might be watching us back. It's okay, boy, I said, but my voice sounded shaky even to myself. We'll find our way back. The smell was getting stronger now. Definitely something dead, but mixed with something else. Something that made my stomach turn and my hands start to sweat. As the sun started to set, I realized we were completely lost. Lost in woods I thought I knew like the back of my hand. And somewhere out there in the growing darkness, something was waiting for us. Rex pressed close to my leg, trembling. Even he knew we were in trouble now. Don't worry, boy, I whispered, checking that my rifle was loaded. Whatever's out there, we'll be ready for it. But deep down, I was starting to think that maybe we wouldn't be ready at all. Maybe nothing could prepare us for what was coming. We spent that whole night huddled by a small fire, Rex and me taking turns staying awake. Every little sound made us jump, a twig snapping, leaves rustling, an owl hooting way off in the distance. But mostly it was just that awful quiet again. When morning came, I was relieved to see daylight. Everything looks less scary in the sun, you know. I made some coffee and shared a can of peaches with Rex. He wasn't eating much, which worried me. Rex loved his food. We're going to find our way out today, boy, I told him, scratching behind his ears. I promise. But first I wanted to take a look around in the daylight. Maybe I could figure out where we'd gone wrong. I left Rex by the fire and walked about 50 yards into the trees. That's when I saw the first real sign that something was very wrong in these woods. Claw marks, deep ones, carved right into the bark of a big pine tree. They started about 15 feet up and went down to maybe 8 feet off the ground. 4 parallel lines, each one as wide as my thumb. I'd seen bear claws before. These weren't bear claws. They were too big, too deep, and they were too high up. No bear I ever heard of could reach 15 feet up a tree. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that the marks looked fresh, real fresh, like they'd been made in the last day or two. Sap was still bleeding out of the cuts. "Rex," I called. "Come here, boy." He came running, but when he got close to the tree, he stopped, dead. His whole body went stiff, and he started that low growling again. He wouldn't come any closer, no matter how much I called him. I took some pictures with my camera. Nobody was going to believe this without proof. We packed up camp and started. Walking again, I was trying to head south now, back toward the road. But every trail seemed to curve back on itself. Every time I thought we were making progress, we'd end up in another clearing that looked exactly like the one we'd just left. Around noon, we came across something that made my blood run cold. It was an old logging camp, or what was left of one. There were 3 wooden buildings, all falling apart and covered with moss. Rusty equipment scattered around, chainsaws, axes, coils of cable, like the workers had just up and left one day, leaving everything behind. But that wasn't what scared me. What scared me was that I knew this place. I'd heard stories about it from the older guys at the mill. This was the Jensen camp. It had been abandoned back in '62 after 3 loggers disappeared, just vanished without a trace. The company sent search teams, but they never found so much as a boot print. After a few weeks, they gave up and moved operations somewhere else. Remembered old Pete telling me about it. "Something ain't right up there," he'd said. "Animals won't go near the place. Even the birds stay away." Standing there looking at those empty buildings, I understood what Pete meant. Rex wouldn't even walk into the clearing. He sat at the tree line, whining and shaking. I forced myself to go look around. Maybe there was something useful, a map, a radio, anything that could help us get out of here. The first building was just storage, moldy tarps and rusted tools. The second one had been a kitchen. There were still pots on the stove, covered in years of dust and spider webs. The third building was a bunkhouse. That's where I found them, personal stuff. Clothes still folded in footlockers, family photos on the walls, a deck of cards scattered on a table like someone had been in the middle of a game when they got up and never came back. But the strangest thing was the smell. That same sweet, rotten smell I'd been noticing. It was stronger here, much stronger, like something had died in this building and been left to rot. I was looking through one of the footlockers when I heard Rex barking outside. Not his normal bark. This was panic, pure panic. I grabbed my rifle and ran outside. Rex was backing away from the tree line, barking and snarling at something I couldn't see. "What is it, boy?" I called. "What's out there?" That's when I heard it. A voice calling my name. Marcus Thompson. It was a woman's voice, sweet and sad. It sounded like it was coming from deep in the trees, but I couldn't see anyone. "Marcus, help me. I'm lost." Rex was going crazy now, barking and howling. I'd never seen him so scared. "Who's there?" I shouted into the trees. "Where are you? Help me, Marcus. I can't find my way out." The voice was moving. First it came from the north, then the east, then behind me. Like whoever was calling was circling us, staying just out of sight. "Show yourself!" I yelled, raising my rifle. "Come out where I can see you!" But nobody came out. The voice just kept calling, getting fainter and fainter until it faded away completely. Rex finally stopped barking, but he was still trembling. His fur was standing up all over his body. I looked around the clearing one more time. That's when I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. My compass was spinning, not just pointing the wrong way, actually spinning in slow circles like it couldn't figure out which way was north. I tapped it, shook it, held it up to the light. Nothing worked. The needle just kept spinning and spinning. "Okay, Rex," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're leaving, right now." But as we headed for the tree line, I looked back at the abandoned camp one more time. In the dusty window of the bunkhouse, I could swear I saw a pale face watching us. When I blinked and looked again, it was gone. We walked for hours after that, but the forest just seemed to get deeper and darker. The trees were so thick now that barely any sunlight made it through, and that smell, that awful sweet smell, was everywhere. Rex stayed right by my side, pressed against my leg. Every few minutes he'd stop and look back the way we'd come, like something was following us. I was starting to think maybe something was. As the sun began to set again, I realized we were going to have to spend another night in these woods. But this time, I had the feeling we wouldn't be alone. Somewhere out there in the growing darkness, something was waiting for us. Something that knew our names and could move without making a sound. Something that had been hunting in these woods for a very long time. That second night was when everything changed, Father. When I finally saw what had been hunting us, we made camp in a small clearing, the best spot I could find. I built the fire bigger than usual, big enough to keep anything away, or so I hoped. Rex wouldn't leave my side. He kept looking out into the dark trees, ears up, body ready to run. I tried to eat some beans from a can, but my stomach was too twisted up. Rex wouldn't touch his food at all. We both knew something bad was coming. Around midnight, the fire started to die down. I was reaching for another piece of wood when Rex suddenly went completely still. Not scared still like before. This was different. This was like he'd turned to stone. I looked where he was looking, out past the fire into the darkness between the trees. That's when I saw the eyes. Two yellow lights, way too big to be human eyes, staring at us from about 30 feet away. They were maybe 8 feet off the ground, which meant whatever they belonged to was tall. Real tall. Easy, boy, I whispered to Rex, slowly reaching for my rifle. But Rex didn't move, didn't even blink, like he was frozen in place. The eyes didn't move either. They just watched us, patient as death. I raised my rifle and clicked off the safety. The sound seemed too loud in the quiet forest. "I can see you," I called out. "Come into the light where I can get a good look at you." Nothing. Just those yellow eyes burning in the darkness. Then I heard something that made my blood turn to ice water. A voice. But not the woman's voice from before. This was a man's voice. Deep and rough, like someone who'd been smoking cigarettes for 50 years. Well, if it ain't little Marcus Thompson. I knew that voice. I'd heard it 1,000 times back in Korea. It was Sergeant Williams, my old squad leader, the man who'd saved my life more times than I could count. But Sergeant Williams had been dead for 15 years. "Sarge," I whispered. "That you?" "Course. It's me, boy. You think I'd forget about you after all we've been through?" The voice was coming from where the eyes were, but I still couldn't see anything else. Just darkness and those burning yellow lights. "You're dead, Sarge. You died at Heartbreak Ridge." A laugh echoed through the trees. Cold and empty, nothing. Like the warm laugh I remembered. "Dead? Hell, Marcus, we're all dead, every last one of us. Question is when you gonna join us?" Rex finally moved. He pressed himself against my leg, shaking so hard I could feel it through my pants. "What do you want?" I asked. "Want? I want what I always wanted, boy. I want you to follow orders. I want you to put down that rifle and come. On over here. Time to rejoin your squad." I kept the rifle pointed at those eyes. "I don't think so, Sarge." "That's an order, soldier!" The voice got louder, angrier, and with it came a sound like branches breaking, like something big moving through the trees. But those eyes never moved. They just kept staring. "You always were stubborn, Marcus. Remember that time in Busan when you wouldn't retreat? Had to drag you out of there myself." The thing was right. That had happened. But how could it know that? Nobody else had been there except— "You ain't Sergeant Williams," I said. "Ain't I? Tell me, boy, what was the last thing I said to you, right before that Chinese shell took my head clean off?" My hands started shaking, because I remembered. I remembered exactly what Sarge had said, his last words before the explosion that killed him and 3 other good men. You said to tell your wife you loved her. That's right. And did you? Did you ever find my Martha and give her that message? I hadn't. I'd tried to forget about the war, forget about all the friends I'd lost. I'd never looked up Sergeant Williams's widow, never passed along his final words. Shame on you, Marcus, all these years, and you never kept your promise to a dying man. Those yellow eyes started moving then. Not side to side, but up and down. Like the thing was getting taller, stretching up toward the sky. Now look what you made me become. Look what happens to soldiers who don't keep their promises. I aimed my rifle right between those eyes and pulled the trigger. The gunshot was loud as thunder in the quiet forest. But when the echo died away, the eyes were still there, still watching, still burning in the darkness. Can't kill what's already dead, boy. I fired again, and again. All 3 shots hit exactly where I was aiming. I'd been shooting since I was 10 years old, and I never missed. But those eyes didn't even blink. My turn, the thing said. That's when I finally saw it. It stepped into the edge of the firelight, and I understood why Rex had been so scared, why the other animals had all run away, why 3 loggers had vanished without a trace. It looked like a man, but wrong. All wrong. It was maybe 9 feet tall, thin as a rail, but somehow still looking strong. Its skin was grey, like old leather, stretched tight over bones that stuck out in places where bones shouldn't stick out. But the worst part was its face. It had Sergeant Williams' face, but starved and twisted. His eyes but yellow instead of brown, his mouth but full of teeth that were too long and too sharp. Surprised, Marcus? You shouldn't be. You knew this day would come. Deep down, you always knew. It took a step closer. Rex whimpered and tried to crawl under my legs. All those nights you couldn't sleep, thinking about Korea, about the things you did over there, the things you had to do to survive. I was a soldier, I said. I followed orders. Did you? Or did you do things that soldiers ain't supposed to do? Another step closer. I could smell it now. That sweet, rotten smell, but 100 times stronger. It made me want to throw up. Remember that village, Marcus? The one where we got cut off for 3 days. Remember how hungry we got? Stop, I whispered. Remember what we ate to stay alive. Stop it. Remember how good it tasted? I shot at it again, but the bullet went right through like it was shooting at smoke. The thing just smiled with those awful teeth. You can't run from what you are, boy. You can't hide from the hunger forever. It started walking around our fire, slow and patient. Rex was trying to hide behind me, making little crying sounds I'd never heard a dog make before. You feel it, don't you? Late at night, when you think nobody's watching, that empty feeling in your stomach that food can't fill, that need for something different. You're lying. Am I? When's the last time you really enjoyed a meal, Marcus? When's the last time regular food satisfied you? I wanted to tell it to shut up, but the truth was, I couldn't remember. Since coming back from Korea, everything tasted like cardboard. Even my wife's cooking, which used to be my favorite thing in the world. That's the hunger talking, boy. The same hunger I got. The same hunger that's going to eat you up from the inside until you give in. The thing stopped directly across the fire from me. This close, I could see more details I wished I couldn't see. Its fingers were too long, ending in black claws. Its chest moved up and down, but I couldn't hear it breathing. Come with me, Marcus. Stop fighting what you are. Stop pretending you're still human. I am human. Are you? Then why are you here, boy? Really, why'd you come up to these woods all alone? To get away, to think, or to hunt? The word hit me like a slap, because deep down, in a place I didn't want to look, I knew it was right. I hadn't come here to fish or camp or think about my problems. I'd come here because something had been calling me, something that whispered to me in the dark hours before dawn, telling me to come to the deep woods where nobody would see, where nobody would know. That's right, the thing said, reading my face. You feel it now, don't you? The real reason you're here. Rex looked up at me with those trusting brown eyes, and for just a second I wondered what he would taste like. The thought hit me so hard I staggered backward. "No," I gasped. "No, that's not me. That's not who I am." But the thing just smiled wider. "We'll see about that, Marcus Thompson. We'll see about that real soon." And then it was gone. Just melted back into the darkness like it had never been there at all. But I knew it was still out there, still watching, still waiting for me to stop fighting and give in to what it said I really was. I held Rex close and stared into the fire until dawn, trying not to think about how hungry I was getting. The third day was when everything fell apart, Father. I didn't sleep at all that last night. Just sat by the fire, holding my rifle, watching the trees. Rex stayed pressed against me, both of us jumping at every little sound. When the sun finally came up, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. "Come on, boy," I told Rex. "We're getting out of here today, no matter what." But as we packed up camp, I could feel those yellow eyes watching us. The thing was out there somewhere, waiting. I knew it wouldn't let us leave. Not alive, anyway. We started walking south again, or what I hoped was south. My compass was still spinning like a broken toy. Rex walked so close to me he kept bumping into my legs, looking back over his shoulder every few steps. Around noon, we found an old cabin. It was small and run down, with half the roof caved in and boards missing from the walls. But it had 4. Walls and a door, which was more protection than we'd had for 2 days. "This'll do," I said, checking my rifle again. I had maybe 10 bullets left. Not many, but I was hoping they wouldn't all go right through the thing like the others had. Inside the cabin, there wasn't much. A rusty wood stove, a broken table, some old newspapers from 1961. But in the corner I found something useful. A can of kerosene, about half full. Maybe left behind by hunters or fishermen. I dragged the table over to the door and pushed it, up against it. Not much of a barricade, but it might slow the thing down. Then I poured kerosene around the walls and saved some in the can. "If that thing wants us," I told Rex, "it's gonna have to work for it." Rex just whined and curled up in the corner. He looked sick, like he hadn't eaten in days. Come to think of it, neither of us had eaten much since we got lost. My stomach felt empty, but not normal empty. This was different. This was like a hole inside me that food couldn't fill. The waiting was the worst part. Hours crawled by. The sun moved across the sky, throwing long shadows through the broken roof. Every little sound made me jump, a board creaking, wind whistling. Through the gaps in the walls, mice scurrying in the corners. As it got dark, Rex started acting strange. He kept looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not love or loyalty like usual, something else, something that made my skin crawl. "What's wrong, boy?" I asked, reaching out to pet him. He snapped at my hand, actually tried to bite me, something Rex had never done in his whole life. Then he backed away, growling low in his throat. "Rex, what's gotten into you?" But he just kept growling, staring at me like I was a stranger, like I was something dangerous. That's when I heard the voice outside. "Marcus, time to come out, boy. Time to stop playing games." It was Sergeant Williams again, but different this. "In time, hungrier. I know you're in there. I can smell you. Can smell that dog of yours too." Rex stopped growling at me and started growling at the door. But he was shaking so hard I could hear his teeth chattering. "You can't hide forever, Marcus, and deep down you don't want to. Part of you wants to come out here and join me. Part of you has been waiting for this your whole life." I raised my rifle toward the door. "Stay back! I'm warning you!" A laugh echoed around the cabin. "Warning me? Boy, you don't even know what you are yet." Something heavy hit the door. The whole cabin shook, and the table I'd used as a barricade slid back a few inches. "Let me tell you a story, Marcus, about a soldier who got lost in the woods of Korea, about a man who did things to survive that no human being should ever do." Another hit. The door cracked right down the middle. About a man who found out he liked the taste. Rex was going crazy now, barking and snarling, but he wasn't looking at the door anymore. He was looking at me, like he finally understood what I was. About a man who came home and tried to be normal, but couldn't stop thinking about that taste, couldn't stop dreaming about it. The door splintered. I could see yellow eyes glowing in the darkness outside. About a man who killed his own wife when she found the bones in the basement. "That's not true," I screamed. But even as I said it, I remembered Sarah asking too many questions about the smell coming from downstairs. Sarah threatening to call the police. Sarah looking at me with fear in her eyes as about a man who's been hunting in these woods for months, bringing people here one by one. A logger here, a hiker there, always hungry, never satisfied. The door exploded inward. Wooden splinters flew everywhere. And there it stood, the thing that looked like Sergeant Williams but wasn't. 9 feet tall, grey skin stretched over. Bone, those terrible yellow eyes, but now I could see it clearly, and I realized something that made my blood turn to ice. It looked just like me, starved and twisted, but definitely me, like looking in a funhouse mirror that showed what I really was inside. "Hello, Marcus," it said with my own voice. "Ready to stop pretending?" I shot at it. The bullet hit it square in the chest and passed, right through just like before, but this time I felt the impact, felt the bullet tear through my own chest like I was the one being shot. "You can't kill me, boy. I'm you. I'm what you've always been." Rex lunged at the thing, brave little dog, trying to protect me one last time, but the thing caught him in those long clawed hands. "Rex!" I screamed. The thing looked at me, then at Rex, then smiled with those sharp teeth. "Hungry, Marcus. Your dog looks tasty, just like all the others." And that's when something snapped inside my head, like a dam bursting, letting out all the thoughts I'd been keeping locked away. I remembered Korea, not the war stories I told people, but the real truth. The village where we got trapped, the hunger that drove us to do unthinkable things, the taste that haunted my dreams. I remembered coming home and trying to forget, trying to be a normal husband, a normal man. But the hunger never went away. It just got stronger. I remembered Sarah finding the remains in our basement, her face when she realized what I'd become, the way she screamed as I remembered coming to these woods not to get away from my problems, but to hunt, to feed, to become what I really was. The thing holding Rex wasn't some monster from Indian legends. It was me. It had always been me. I grabbed the can of kerosene and dumped it over everything. The walls, the floor, myself. Then I struck a match. "If I'm a monster," I said, "then monsters deserve to burn." The cabin went up like a torch. Fire everywhere, burning everything, burning away the lies I'd told myself. In the flames, I could see Rex looking at me one last time. Not with fear anymore, but with sadness, like he was sorry for what I'd become. The pain was incredible, but it felt right. It felt like justice. When the rescue teams found me, the next morning I was barely alive. Burns over half my body, talking about wendigos and monsters. They never found Rex, never found whole bodies of any of the people who'd gone missing. But they found enough pieces, enough bones, enough evidence to know what I'd really been doing in those woods. And here I am, Father, 3 hours from the electric chair, still trying to convince myself it was a wendigo, still trying to believe I'm not the monster. But deep down, I know the truth. The wendigo was real, all right. It was me. Father McKenna sits back in his chair, his coffee cup forgotten in his hands. The snow is still falling outside my window, but heavier now, like the sky is trying to bury the whole world under white. He's been quiet for a long time since I finished my story, just sitting there looking at his little notebook. His face is pale and his hands are shaking worse than before. "Marcus," he says finally, his voice very soft. "Do you understand what you just told me?" I look at him, confused. I told you about the Wendigo, Father, about what happened in the woods. He sets down his coffee and leans forward. Marcus, there was no Wendigo. Of course there was. I saw it. I fought it. It nearly killed me. No. His voice is gentle but firm. You fought yourself, Marcus. You fought the truth about what you'd become. I shake my head. You don't understand. The thing had yellow eyes, claws. It was 9 feet tall. It looked like you, didn't it? You said so yourself. The words stop in my throat. Because he's right, I did say that. Father McKenna opens his notebook and starts reading. You said your wife left you, but then you mentioned she found bones in your basement. You said Rex was your loyal dog, but you also said you carried his body around after killing him. You said you went to the woods to get away, but you also said you went there to hunt. The Wendigo confused me, made me think things that weren't true. Marcus, I've been a priest for 30 years. I've heard confessions from murderers, thieves, men who've done terrible things. But I've never heard someone tell the truth so clearly while believing their own lies so completely. He flips through his notebook pages. You know details about the missing people that only the killer would know. You described exactly where their remains were found. You knew about the logging camp murders from 1962, murders that happened the same way as the recent ones. My stomach feels sick. What are you saying? I'm saying there never was a Wendigo, Marcus. There was just a man named Marcus Thompson who came back from Korea with a hunger he couldn't control. A man who killed his wife when she discovered what he was doing. A man who spent months hunting people in the Olympic forest. No, that's not. I'm not a monster. Father McKenna's eyes are sad but steady. Marcus, do you remember what Rex looked like when you found him in the woods? He was my dog, German Shepherd, loyal and brave. Was he alive when you found him? The question hits me like a punch, because suddenly I do remember. Rex wasn't alive when I found him in the woods. Rex had been dead for weeks. I'd been carrying around his mummified body, talking to it, pretending he was still alive. Oh God, I whisper, and the compass that kept spinning, the trails that led in circles, the voice calling your name. Marcus, your mind was protecting you from the truth by creating the Wendigo story. But I saw it. I fought it. You saw your reflection in broken glass and mirrors around the old cabin. You fought yourself, Marcus. Literally fought your own reflection because you couldn't accept what you'd become. The room feels like it's spinning. The woman's voice in the woods. Your own voice, recorded on your radio during one of your episodes, playing back to you later. The claw marks on the trees, you made those yourself, with climbing gear. Creating evidence to support the story your mind needed to believe. I put my head in my hands. The memories are coming back now, the real ones. Not the Wendigo story, but the truth underneath it. Sarah, my wife, asking about the smell from the basement, finding the bones I'd hidden down there, the look of horror on her face when she realized what they were, what I'd been doing, the way she screamed when I killed her. I whisper, yes, I killed all of them, yes. There was no Wendigo. Father McKenna closes his notebook. The Wendigo was real, Marcus, but it wasn't some ancient forest spirit. It was you. You became the Wendigo. I look up at him. Do you think I'm crazy, Father? Do you think I really believe my own story? He's quiet for a long moment. I think your mind broke from the weight of what you'd done. I think it created the Wendigo story to protect you from a truth too horrible to face. And yes, I think you really do believe it, even now. Even after what you just told me? What do you believe, Marcus? I try to think. Try to separate the Wendigo story from the real memories, but it's like trying to untangle two pieces of rope that have been twisted together for years. I don't know, I admit. Part of me knows you're right. Part of me can remember doing those things, but part of me still sees those yellow eyes in the darkness. The human mind is capable of incredible self-deception when the truth is too painful. So I really am a monster. You did monstrous things. But the fact that your mind couldn't accept it, that it had to create this elaborate story to cope, that tells me there was still something human left in you. Something that knew what you were doing was wrong. Outside, the snow is getting thicker. Soon the whole world will be white and clean, covering up all the ugly things underneath. Father, do you think God can forgive someone like me? He looks at me for a long time. I think God forgives those who truly repent. But Marcus, you can't repent for something you don't believe you did. What if I can't stop believing the Wendigo story? What if it's too late for me to see the truth? Then you'll die in 3 hours still thinking you're innocent, still thinking you were the victim instead of the monster. The guard's keys jingle in the hallway outside. They're coming closer. Father, will you do something for me? What? Will you tell the families? Tell them I'm sorry, even if I can't remember exactly what I'm sorry for. He nods. I will. And Father, when they ask you about me, don't tell them. About the Wendigo story, just tell them I was sick. Tell them my mind was broken. Why? Because maybe that's the only true thing left. Maybe being crazy is the only honest thing about me. The footsteps stop outside my cell. Keys turn in the lock. It's time, Marcus, the guard says. I stand up slowly. Father McKenna stands too. Will you walk with me, Father? As far as they'll let me. As we leave the cell, I look back one more time. At the window, the snow is still falling, thick and white and beautiful. It reminds me of that morning in the forest, when everything seemed peaceful and clean, before I found out what I really was. Or maybe before the Wendigo found me. Even now, walking toward the electric chair, I still don't know which story is true. Maybe that's the most terrifying thing of all. The silence before. Epilogue. The walk. The hallway is longer than I remembered. Each step echoes off the grey walls, bouncing back and forth until it sounds like 100 men walking to their deaths. Father McKenna walks beside me as far as the rules allow. At the big steel door, he stops and puts his hand on my shoulder. Marcus, he says quietly, any last words you want me to pass along? I think about it, about Sarah, about the families of all those people in the woods, about Rex, who died trying to protect me from myself. Tell them I'm sorry, I say. Even if I can't remember everything, tell them I'm sorry. He nods. I will. The guard opens the steel door, and I walk through alone. The room beyond is small and bright, with too many lights and too many witnesses. They're all watching me through. Thick glass, these people who want to see justice done. I wonder if any of them are family members. If any of them lost someone in those woods. The chair sits in the middle of the room, big and wooden and older than me. It looks hungry, like it's been waiting all day to feed. Please sit down, Mr. Thompson, says the warden. I sit. The leather. Straps are cold against my arms and legs. Everything moves very slowly, like we're all underwater. Through the glass, I can see people talking, but I can't hear them. One woman is crying. A man next to her holds her hand and stares at me with hate in his eyes. I wonder if she was someone's mother, someone's wife. The technician puts the metal cap on my head. It's heavier than I expected, and it smells like cleaning solution and old fear. Do you have any final words? The warden asks. I look at all those faces behind the glass, all those people who lost someone because of what I did, or because of what the Wendigo did. I still can't tell the difference. I want you to know, I say, my voice sounding small in the big room, that I never meant for any of this to happen. I came back from the war broken, and I never got fixed. Something inside me was hungry, and I couldn't make it stop. The woman behind the glass cries harder. I don't know if I'm a man who became a monster, or a monster who thought he was a man, but either way, people died because of me. Innocent people. Good people. I close my eyes and I can see the forest again. The tall trees, the quiet snow, the peaceful morning before everything went wrong. I hope when this is over they can rest. I hope their families can have some peace. The warden nods to the technician. And I hope, I whisper, so quiet only I can hear, that whatever I really was dies with me. The machine hums to life. Through the window I can see snow still falling. Big white flakes that will cover the prison yard, cover the roads, cover the whole world in something clean and new. For just a moment I think I see yellow eyes watching me from the darkness beyond the glass. But when I blink, they're gone. Maybe. They were never there at all. The last thing I see is the snow, falling soft and silent, covering up all the ugliness underneath, making everything look peaceful and pure, just like that morning in the woods, before I learned what monsters really look like, before I learned that sometimes they look just like us. 3 months later, Father McKenna visited the Olympic National Forest. He brought flowers for the places where the victims were found and said prayers for their souls. The woods were quiet and clean, covered in fresh snow. No signs remained of the horror that had happened there. Nature had reclaimed the abandoned logging camp. The old cabin had burned completely away, and new growth was already starting where the old scars had been. But as he walked back to his car, Father McKenna couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him from the deep trees. Something patient and hungry, waiting for the next lost soul to wander too far from the light. He drove away quickly and never returned. The woods kept their silence, as they always had, as they always would. My name is Patricia O'Brien, and I came to these woods to forget. But some things follow you no matter how far you run. The trees in Manistee National Forest were painted red and gold, like someone had splashed paint everywhere. Pretty, I guess. But when you've seen as much blood as I have, red leaves just remind you of crime scenes. 8 years as a Detroit cop will do that to you. Every beautiful thing gets ruined when you've seen the ugly side of people. I kicked through the dead leaves, trying to enjoy the quiet. No sirens here, no gunshots, no screaming, just me, my dog Max, and miles of empty forest. This was supposed to help me sleep better. The therapist said nature would calm my mind. She didn't know what I was really running from. Max stopped suddenly, his ears up and alert. A white-tailed deer stood frozen about 30 feet away, staring right at me. For a second, we just looked at each other. Then it turned and ran like the devil was chasing it. Same way people used to look at me when they saw my badge back in Detroit. Fear, like they knew I was trouble. The wind picked up, and I could smell rain coming. Storm clouds were rolling in fast, turning the sky dark, even though it was only afternoon. There was something electric in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes. It reminded me of another night 3 years ago, when everything went wrong. But I pushed that memory down deep where it belonged. My radio crackled with static. Weird. I was supposed to be out of range out here. I told everyone at the station I was going camping alone, needed some time to think. Nobody should be able to reach me. The static cleared for a second, and I heard voices talking about coordinates, my location. My blood went cold. Someone was tracking me. "Come on, Max," I whispered. "Let's keep moving." We walked deeper into the woods, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. Max felt it too. He kept looking over his shoulder, whining softly. In Detroit, I learned to trust that feeling. It kept me alive more than once. I caught a whiff of something that made my skin crawl. Gun oil, and the smell of fear sweat. Someone else was out here, and they were armed and scared, real scared. My hand moved to my service weapon without thinking. Old habits. The forest got quiet, too quiet. Even the insects stopped buzzing. In the distance, I heard something that made my blood freeze. It started as a howl, long and mournful, but there was something human about it, like a person screaming in pain. It echoed through the trees, getting closer. Max started shaking. This dog had been through police training. seen drug raids and gang shootouts. Nothing scared him. But that sound terrified him. I thought about Marcus Webb then, my old partner, the screams he made that night in the warehouse, the night I should have been there to back him up, the night I chose my career over his life. Another howl cut through the air, closer this time, definitely closer, and somewhere. In that inhuman sound, I swear I heard a voice calling my name. I sat down on a fallen log, trying to calm my nerves. Max pressed against my leg, still shaking. The howl had stopped, but the silence felt even worse, like something was holding its breath, waiting. I pulled out Marcus Webb's badge from my jacket pocket. I'd carried it for 3 years now, ever. Since the funeral I didn't go to. The metal was warm from being close to my heart, but it felt heavy as a rock. Heavy with secrets I'd never told anyone. Marcus was my partner for 2 years, best cop I ever worked with. Smart, careful, always. Had my back. We solved cases other detectives couldn't touch. Drug dealers, gang murders, missing kids. We were a team. At least, I thought we were. The trouble started when internal affairs came sniffing around our unit. Someone was taking money from drug busts, skimming cash before it got logged as evidence. IA suspected everyone, but they had their eye on Marcus, said his bank account looked too healthy for a cop's salary. Thing is, they were right. Marcus was dirty, but so was I. So were half the guys in our unit. The money was just sitting there in evidence bags, and nobody counted it too close. We told ourselves we deserved it after risking our lives every day for pocket change. But when IA started asking questions, I got scared. Real scared. I had a mortgage, car payments, a life to protect. Marcus, he was single, lived alone. He had nobody depending on him. So I made a choice, the worst choice of my life. I told IA that Marcus was the one taking the money, gave them dates, amounts, everything they needed. In exchange, they cleared me, said I was a good cop who got mixed up with the wrong partner. Marcus never saw it coming. He trusted me right up until the end. Even when they arrested him, he looked at me like I'd fix everything, like his partner would save him. I didn't. The night before his hearing, Marcus called me. His voice was shaky, scared. He said he had evidence that could bring down the whole dirty network. But he needed my help. Needed me to meet him at this old warehouse where we used to grab coffee during patrol. I told him I'd be there. Told him we'd figure it out together, but I never showed up. I stayed home, watching TV, pretending I couldn't hear my phone ringing. Because I knew if I helped Marcus, IA would come after me next. My clean record would disappear. My pension, my reputation, everything. Marcus went to that warehouse alone, and someone was waiting for him. They found his body the next morning, 3 bullets in the chest. The official report said it was a robbery gone wrong, but I knew better. Someone wanted Marcus quiet before he could talk. Someone with enough power to make a cop disappear. Maybe it was the drug dealers we'd been stealing from. Maybe it was dirty cops higher up the chain. Maybe it was IA themselves cleaning up loose ends. I never found out because I never tried to find out. I just took his badge from his desk after the funeral and promised myself I'd be a better cop. But promises don't bring back the dead. The rain started falling, light drops at first, then harder. Max whined and looked toward the dark trees. Something was moving out there, just beyond what I could see. Something big. I stood up, my hand on my gun. The radio crackled again, clearer this time. Subject is in position, a calm woman's voice said. Beginning phase 2 of the test. My heart stopped. Subject? Test? What the hell was going on? I tried to respond, but the radio went dead. Just static and the sound of rain hitting leaves. That's when I saw the eyes, yellow-green, glowing in the darkness between the trees, watching me, waiting. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a crazy thought started growing. What if Marcus hadn't died in that warehouse? What if something else had happened to him? Something worse than death? The eyes blinked once, then disappeared. Into the night, Max started barking, loud and desperate, like he was trying to warn me about something terrible coming our way. The rain was getting heavier now. I pulled my hood up and kept walking, but my feet felt like lead. Every step took me deeper into the woods, away from my car, away from help. Max stayed close, his fur soaked and his eyes darting around like he expected something to jump out. At us. That's when I saw the first track. It was pressed deep into the mud near a small creek. At first I thought it was from a really big dog, maybe a German shepherd or something, but as I knelt down and looked closer, my blood went cold. The front part looked like a huge paw with claws, but the back part looked like a human foot, like something had been walking on 2 legs, then dropped down to 4. The print was bigger than my whole hand. What the hell? I whispered. I'd seen tracks like this before. Back in Detroit, we had a case about some crazy cult that thought they were werewolves. They'd leave prints like this at their crime scenes trying to scare people. But those were fake, made with special shoes or carved wooden feet. This one looked real, fresh. The edges were sharp and clean in the wet mud. I followed the trail for about 50 yards. The tracks went in a straight line, like whatever made them knew exactly where it was going. They led deeper into the forest, toward an area where the trees grew thick and dark. Max stopped walking and sat down hard, refusing to go any further. He was a brave dog, trained for police work, but something about these tracks scared him more than anything I'd ever seen. I was about to turn back when I noticed something weird about the spacing between the prints. They were exactly 18 inches apart. I knew that measurement because Marcus and I used to pace off distances at crime scenes all the time. His stride was exactly 18 inches when he walked slow and careful. My hands started shaking. That was impossible. Just a coincidence. Had to be. But then I saw the next sign. Scratched into the bark of a big oak tree, about 5.5 feet off the ground, were 4 deep claw marks. They looked fresh, with tree sap still bleeding from the cuts. But here's what made my skin crawl. They were at exactly my eye level. Like whatever made them knew how tall I was. Marcus always knew my height. He used to tease me about being short, said I needed a ladder to see over the steering wheel of our police car. He'd adjust things for me without thinking about it. Car mirrors, evidence boards, even restaurant menus when we grabbed lunch. I reached out to touch the claw marks, and that's when I smelled it. That same mix of gun oil and fear sweat from before, but stronger now. And underneath it, something else. Something familiar that I couldn't quite place. The radio in my pocket crackled again. Subject MW7 is responding to target proximity, the same woman's voice said. Territorial marking behavior confirmed, moving to phase 3. MW7, what kind of code name was that? And why did it sound almost like no? That was crazy thinking. I tried to key the radio, but it was dead again, just like before. The smell got stronger as I walked, sweet and metallic like old blood. It led me to a small clearing where I found something that made me sick to my stomach. 3 dead rabbits hung from tree branches, arranged in a perfect triangle. They'd been killed clean, no mess, no struggle. Professional, like someone who knew exactly how to do it quick and quiet. Marcus had been a hunter before he became a cop. He could field dress a deer in 10 minutes without wasting any meat. Always said it was about respect for the animal, making sure it didn't suffer. These rabbits looked like they'd been killed the same way. Fast, clean, almost gentle, but they weren't killed for food. They were killed to send a message. The same way Marcus and I used to leave evidence at crime scenes to communicate with each other when we couldn't talk on the radio. I was starting to understand something terrible, something impossible. The storm was getting worse. Lightning flashed between the trees, and thunder rolled overhead like a freight train. But in the quiet moments between the thunder, I could hear something else. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, getting closer. Something was following me. Something that knew how I walked, how I thought, how I investigated crime scenes. Something that remembered being my partner. Max started barking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was recognition, like he knew whoever was coming. I drew my gun and turned toward the sound, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "Who's there?" I called out. "This is police. Show yourself." The footsteps stopped. In the silence that followed, I heard something that made my world turn upside down. A voice. Human, but wrong somehow. Deeper than it should be. Rough, like it hadn't been used in a long time. "Officer down," it said. "Officer needs backup." Those were our old codes, mine and Marcus's, the words we used when everything went bad and we needed help fast. The voice was his. Changed, damaged, but definitely his. Marcus Webb was alive. And he was hunting me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The voice echoed in my head over and over. "Officer down. Officer needs backup." Words that Marcus had said 100 times during our partnership. Words that meant everything was going wrong and we needed to trust each other to survive. But Marcus was dead. I'd seen the police report. I'd held his badge at the memorial service I was too ashamed to attend. Lightning flashed again, and for just a second, I saw something moving between the trees, big, tall, walking upright like a person, but wrong somehow. Too wide in the shoulders, too long in the arms. "Marcus?" I whispered. My voice shook so bad I could barely get the word out. No answer, just the sound of rain and my own heart pounding. Max whined and pressed against my legs. He was looking toward the trees, but his tail was wagging now. Slow and uncertain, like he recognized someone but couldn't understand why they looked different. I kept my gun raised and took a step forward. "If that's you, Marcus, you need to show yourself. We can figure this out. Whatever happened, we can fix it." Something moved in the shadows, closer this time. I caught a glimpse of yellow eyes, watching me with an intelligence that no animal should have. They looked sad. Human sad. Like someone trapped inside a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. "I know you're there," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know you're listening. If you're really Marcus, then you remember what we used to say. Partners stick together no matter what." The eyes blinked once, a long, slow blink that seemed almost like a nod. Then I heard it. A low sound, like a whine mixed with a growl. But underneath it, I could hear something else. Something that made my heart break. It sounded like crying. I lowered my gun a little. "Marcus, what happened to you? Where have you been all this time?" The creature stepped into a patch of moonlight, and I saw it clearly for the first time. My legs almost gave out. It was huge, maybe 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur. The head was like a wolf's, but the eyes were human, familiar. It stood on 2 legs like a person, but its hands ended in claws that could tear through steel. But it was the way it moved that convinced me. Careful, methodical, the same way Marcus used to approach a crime scene, thinking through every step before he made it. "Oh God," I breathed. "What did they do to you?" The creature's ears twitched at my voice. It took a step closer and I could see scars running along its arms and chest. Surgical scars, like someone had been cutting it open and putting it back. Together, Max broke away from me and ran toward the creature. I almost screamed, thinking it would hurt him, but instead it knelt down and let Max sniff its hand. The dog licked its palm and wagged his tail harder. Dogs don't lie. If Max trusted this thing, then some part of Marcus was still in there. "They experimented on you," I said, the pieces starting to come together. "After the warehouse, they didn't kill you. They took you somewhere and changed you." The creature nodded, actually nodded. Then it pointed at itself and made a sound that was almost like speech. "Marcus." Hearing him try to say his own name was the worst thing I'd ever experienced. Worse than any crime scene, any dead body, any violence I'd seen in 8 years of police work. This was personal. This was someone I cared about, trapped inside a monster's body. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I should have been there that night. I should have helped you." The creature tilted its head, listening. Its eyes never left my face. "I was scared," I continued. "I was a coward. I let them blame you for everything because I was afraid of going to prison. I chose myself over you, and I've hated myself for it every day since." The creature made another sound, softer this time, almost like forgiveness. But then something changed. Its nostrils flared, and it looked around the forest like it heard something I couldn't. The sadness in its eyes turned to worry, then fear. It stood up and moved closer to me, not threatening but protective, like it was trying to shield me from something. "What is it?" I asked. "What's wrong?" That's when I heard the helicopters. They came from 3 directions, flying low and fast, military style with no lights, the kind they use for special operations, for things the government doesn't want people to know about. The creature grabbed my arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firm, enough to get my attention. It pointed toward a thick patch of trees and made an urgent sound. It was trying to tell me to run. "They're coming for you," I realized. "That's why you're here. You escaped from them, and they've been tracking you." The helicopters got louder. Searchlights cut through the trees, sweeping back and forth, getting closer. The creature looked at me one more time, and I saw something in its eyes that made my blood freeze. It wasn't just scared of being caught. It was scared of what it might do if they tried to take it back. "Run, Patricia," it said, clear as day in Marcus's voice. "Run now." Then it turned and crashed through the trees, leading the helicopters away from me, protecting me, just like it always had when we were partners. I stood there in the rain, watching the lights disappear into the forest, finally understanding the truth. Marcus Webb was alive, changed into something terrible, but alive. And he was still trying to save me, even after everything I'd done to him. The question was, could I save him back? I ran through the forest, branches scratching my face and rain soaking through my clothes. Max stayed right beside me, panting hard but keeping up. The helicopter sounds were getting farther away, but I knew they'd be back. They were hunting Marcus, and now they probably knew I was here too. My legs were getting tired, but I kept running until I saw lights ahead. An old lumber mill sat in a clearing, half the windows broken and rust covering the metal walls. It looked abandoned, but there was a light on in one of the offices. I almost turned around and ran the other way, but then I realized something that made my heart skip a beat. I knew this place. Marcus and I had come here 2 years ago, back when we were partners, back when I thought we might be something more than just cops working together. It was after a really bad day. We'd found a missing kid, but too late. The case had hit us both hard, and instead of going home, we'd driven around talking about why we became cops, why we thought we could make a difference. We'd ended up here, in this same clearing. The mill was running back then, workers going home for the night. We'd sat in our patrol car and talked until sunrise about our dreams, about how maybe someday we could leave Detroit and find somewhere peaceful. That was the night Marcus first kissed me, gentle and careful, like he was afraid I'd pull away. I almost did. Partners weren't supposed to get involved. It was against department rules. But I didn't pull away. I kissed him back. And for a few weeks, I thought maybe we could make it work. Maybe we could be partners in every way that mattered. Then, internal affairs started asking questions. And I got scared. I ended things between us before they could ruin both our careers. Told Marcus we had to stay professional, keep our distance. He never argued, just nodded and said he understood. But I could see the hurt in his eyes. Now, standing outside that same mill, I wondered if Marcus had led me here on purpose, if some part of him remembered what this place meant to us. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air smelled like old wood and machine oil. Most of the equipment was gone, but I could still hear the building creaking in the wind. "Marcus!" I called out. "Are you here?" A shadow moved near the back of the building, too big to be human, but moving too carefully to be just an animal. "I know you brought me here," I said. "This place meant something to us once. Maybe it still does. The shadow stopped moving. In the dim light, I could see those same yellow eyes watching me. The helicopters are gone for now, I continued. But they'll be back. We need to figure out what to do before they find us. Slowly, the creature stepped into the light. Up close, I could see more of the scars. They covered his whole body, like someone had taken him apart and put him back together wrong. But his eyes were still Marcus's. He opened his mouth and tried to speak. It took him several tries, but finally he got the words out. "Pat Ty," he said. "My old nickname, the one only he ever used." I started crying then. I couldn't help it. "Yeah, it's me. I'm here." He took a step closer, moving slow so he wouldn't scare me. When he was close enough, he reached out one clawed hand and gently touched my face. His touch was warm and familiar, even through the fur and scales. "Sorry," he whispered. "So sorry." "For what?" I asked. "You didn't do anything wrong." He shook his massive head. "Should have protected you. Always protect you." That's when I understood. Even after everything that had happened, even after I'd betrayed him and left him to die, Marcus still thought his job was to take care of me. "You don't need to protect me anymore," I said. "I'm the one who should be protecting you. I'm the one who owes you." He made that whining sound again, like he was trying not to cry. But then his ears perked up, and he spun around toward the door. The helicopters were coming back. I could hear them in the distance, getting closer. But there was something else. Footsteps outside, lots of them, moving in formation like soldiers. "Government?" I asked. Marcus nodded. Then he did something that scared me more than anything else that night. He threw back his head and let out a howl. Not angry or threatening. Sad. Like he was saying goodbye. "What are you doing?" I whispered. "Can't control it much longer," he said. "The programming. It's stronger when they're close." Programming. What programming? They built me. To hunt. To kill. When they give the signal. He looked at me with desperate eyes. "Don't want to hurt you, Patty. Never want to hurt you." The footsteps were getting closer. I could see flashlight beams moving outside the windows. "There has to be something we can do," I said. "Some way to fix this." Marcus shook his head. "Only one way to make it stop." He looked down at my gun, still in my hand, and I understood what he was asking me to do. "No," I said. "No, I can't. I won't lose you again." "Please," he whispered, "before they make me into something worse, before I hurt innocent people." The door burst open. Soldiers in black uniforms poured in, pointing rifles with electric prods at Marcus. Their leader, a woman in a lab coat, stepped forward with some kind of remote control in her hand. "Subject MW7, she said in a calm voice. "Return to containment position." Marcus started shaking. His eyes rolled back, and I could see him fighting against something inside his head. "Marcus," I said, "stay with me. Don't let them control you." But it was too late. The woman pressed a button on her remote and Marcus screamed. A sound no human should ever make. When he looked at me again, the humanity was gone from his eyes. There was only hunger and rage. Marcus lunged at the nearest soldier, moving faster than anything that big should be able to move. His claws tore through the man's protective gear like it was made of paper. The soldier screamed and went down hard. "Contain the subject," the woman in the lab coat shouted. "Use maximum voltage." The other soldiers fired their electric weapons. Blue sparks jumped across Marcus's body, and he roared in pain, but he didn't go down. Instead, he got angrier. I raised my gun and pointed it at the woman. "Stop, you're hurting him." She looked at me like I was an annoying bug. "Officer O'Brien, you shouldn't be here. This is a classified military operation." "Who are you?" I demanded. "What did you do to my partner?" "Dr. Sarah Chen," she said calmly, even though Marcus was throwing soldiers around like they weighed nothing. "I'm the lead scientist on Project Nighthound." and Detective Webb volunteered for our program. Volunteered? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nobody volunteers to become a monster. Dr. Chen smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. He did. 3 years ago, after you testified against him, after you destroyed his life and career, we approached him in jail and offered him a choice. My blood turned to ice. What choice? Die in prison as a dirty cop, or help his country by becoming something more than human? A perfect soldier, stronger, faster, better than any normal person. Marcus grabbed another soldier and threw him through a window. Glass exploded everywhere. We had told him the procedure was experimental, Dr. Chen continued, that there were risks, but he said he didn't care, said he had nothing left to live for anyway. You're lying, I whispered. Am I? Ask him yourself. In his lucid moments, he remembers everything, including why he really volunteered. She pressed another button on her remote. Marcus stopped fighting and stood perfectly still, like a robot that had been turned off. Subject MW7, she said. Tell Officer O'Brien why you joined our program. Marcus turned to look at me. His eyes were his own again, but they were filled with pain. Wanted to protect you, he said slowly. They said you were in danger from the people who really killed those dealers. Said if I became what they needed, they'd keep you safe. My legs almost gave out. Marcus, no, you didn't have to. Did it. For you, Patty. Always. For you. Dr. Chen laughed. Touching, isn't it? He still loves you, even after you betrayed him. Even after we changed him into something that barely remembers how to be human. Change him back, I said. There has to be a way. There is no back, she said. The genetic modifications are permanent. The neural programming is hardwired into his brain. He's our property now, a weapon that does exactly what we tell him to do. She raised the remote again. Watch! No! I screamed, but she'd already pressed the button. Marcus's eyes went blank. Again, and he turned toward me with his claws extended. Kill the witness, Dr. Chen commanded. Marcus took a step forward, then another. His face showed no emotion, no recognition, just cold purpose. Marcus, it's me, I said, backing away. It's Patty. You know me. You love me. He kept coming. I could shoot him. My gun was in my hand, loaded and ready. It would be easy. Put him out of his misery and end this nightmare, but I couldn't. Not Marcus, not the man who'd protected me for 2 years, not the man who'd volunteered to become a monster just to keep me safe. Fight it, I whispered. I know you're in. There, fight the programming. Marcus stopped. His head tilted slightly, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Impossible, Dr. Chen muttered. The control signal is at maximum strength. You don't know him like I do, I said. Marcus Webb is the strongest person I've ever met, and he's not your weapon. He's my partner. Marcus blinked, once, then again. The blankness in his eyes started to crack. Pat, Ty, he whispered. That's right, I'm here, and I'm not leaving you again. Dr. Chen's face went white. If we can't control him, then he's too dangerous to live. All units, eliminate the subject. The remaining soldiers raised their weapons. Not electric prods this time. Real guns. No! I turned and put myself between them and Marcus. You want to kill him, you'll have to go through me. Move aside, officer, Dr. Chen said. That's an order. I don't take orders from you, and I don't abandon my partner. Not again. Marcus straightened, up behind me. I could feel his presence, warm and protective, just like the old days. Thank you, he said in my ear, for believing in me. Then he did something that changed everything. He reached over and gently took my gun from my hand. What are you doing? I asked. What I should have done 3 years ago, he said. Taking care of the real monsters. Dr. Chen's eyes went wide. You can't. The programming doesn't work. When I choose love over hate, Marcus said. He raised my gun and pointed it not at me, but at Dr. Chen and her soldiers. Run, Patty. He said, "Get somewhere safe. Tell the world what they did here. I won't leave you again. You have to. This is the only way." He was right, and I knew it, but it was still the hardest thing I'd ever done. I ran toward the back door as Marcus roared his challenge to the soldiers. The sound followed me into the night, fierce and protective, and heartbreakingly human. My partner was still fighting for me. One last time, I ran about 50 yards before I heard the gunshots, lots of them, automatic weapons firing all at once, then sudden silence. My heart stopped. I turned around and ran, back toward the mill, even though every instinct told me to keep running. "Marcus!" I screamed. The front door was hanging off its hinges. Inside, 3 soldiers lay on the ground, not moving. Dr. Chen was pressed against the far wall, her lab coat torn and bloody. Her precious remote control was smashed into pieces on the floor, and Marcus was in the center of it all, on his knees, bleeding from at least 6 bullet wounds. But he was still alive, still breathing. "Patty," he whispered when he saw me, "told you to run." "I'm not running anymore," I said, dropping down beside him. "I'm done running away from the people I care about." Dr. Chen tried to crawl toward the door, but Marcus growled at her and she froze. "The programming," she gasped, "it's completely broken. He's operating on pure instinct now." "Good," I said. "Maybe he can finally be himself." Marcus looked at me with those beautiful, sad eyes. "Patty, I'm dying." I could see it was true. Too much blood, too many wounds. Even with his enhanced healing, there was only so much damage a body could take. "We can get you help," I said, but we both knew it was a lie. "No doctors," he said. "No more experiments. Just want to talk to my partner. One more time." I took his huge, clawed hand in both of mine. It was still warm, still gentle even now. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "For everything. For betraying you. For not being there when you needed me. For all of it. Already forgave you," he said. "Long time ago. Love doesn't keep score." Tears ran down my face. "I loved you too. I still do. I was just too scared to admit it." He smiled then. The first real smile I'd seen from him since this nightmare started. "I know. Could always tell when you were scared." Dr. Chen was reaching for something in her coat pocket. Probably a backup remote or another weapon. But Marcus saw her too. "She has to be stopped," he said. "Others like me. In the program. They'll make more if she lives." "How many others?" I asked. "Dozens. All volunteers who had nothing left. All being controlled." I looked at Dr. Chen. She was pulling out what looked like a small explosive device, probably meant to destroy. "All the evidence if things went wrong." "Give me that," I said, pointing my backup gun at her. She hesitated, then tossed the device over. It was a data drive with a self-destruct timer. All the information about Project Nighthound, set to wipe itself clean in 10 minutes. "The files," Marcus said weakly. "Need the files to save the others." I caught the device and turned off the timer. Inside that little drive was proof of everything. The experiments, the volunteers, the government conspiracy. "I'll make sure everyone knows," I promised. "I'll shut down their whole program." Marcus nodded. "Good. That's good." His breathing was getting shallower. The light in his eyes was starting to fade. "Patty," he whispered, "need you to do something for me. Anything." He looked down at my gun. "Don't want to turn back into their monster. When I die, the programming might reset, bring me back as something worse." I understood what he was asking. The same thing he'd asked before. The hardest thing a person could ever ask someone they love. "Please," he said, "while I'm still me, while I still love you." My hand shook as I raised the gun. This was Marcus, my partner, the man who'd protected me, who'd loved me, who'd sacrificed everything for me, and now he was asking me to set him free. "I can't," I sobbed. "Yes, you can," he said softly. Because you love me. Because you want what's best for me, not what's easiest for you. He was right. He was always right about the important things. Thank you, I whispered, for being my partner, for protecting me, for loving me even when I didn't deserve it. Always deserve love, Patty. Always. I pressed the gun to his forehead, right where I used to kiss him goodnight when we worked late. Cases together. See you on the other side, partner, I said. See you there, he whispered back. The gunshot echoed through the empty mill. When it was over, Marcus looked peaceful, like he was finally free from all the pain and programming and impossible choices. I sat with him for a long time, until I heard more helicopters coming. Then I kissed his forehead one last time and ran. Dr. Chen was unconscious but still breathing. I left her there for the cleanup crews to find. She'd face justice eventually, but not from me. I had bigger things to do. 6 months later, my story broke on every news channel in the country. Project Nighthound was exposed, shut down, and investigated by Congress. Dozens of volunteers like Marcus were found and given proper medical care to reverse what could be reversed. Dr. Chen went to prison for life. Her bosses went with her. I left the police force and became a journalist. Someone has to tell the stories that powerful people want to keep hidden. Someone has to speak for the people who can't speak for themselves. I still carry Marcus's badge, not out of guilt anymore, but out of love. To remember a good man who made a terrible sacrifice to protect the innocent. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I can hear wolves howling in the distance. And I like to think one of those voices is Marcus, finally at peace, finally free. My name is Patricia O'Brien, and this is the story of my partner. The bravest cop I ever knew. The man who taught me that real love means being willing to let go. My name is Robert Steele, but everyone calls me Buck. I'm 45 years old, and I used to ride bulls for a living. That was a long time ago, before everything went wrong. Before Danny died, I'm making these recordings because I might not make it out of these mountains alive. If someone finds this tape recorder, maybe they'll understand what really happened out here in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Maybe they'll know the truth about me. It's August 15th, 1983, and I came here to look for some missing campers. At least, that's what I told the rangers. A family of 4 went camping last week and never came back. Their car is still at the trailhead, but there's no sign of them anywhere. The heat here is crazy. It's 110 degrees, but this isn't normal desert heat. This heat is coming from under the ground, like there's a fire burning deep in the earth. My thermometer is going wild. The needle keeps jumping around like it's broken. I brought my dog Ranger with me. He's a good hunting dog, been with me for 8 years, but he's acting strange. He keeps whining and looking over his shoulder like something's following us. His ears are always up, listening to sounds I can't hear. The forest is too quiet. There should be birds singing, insects buzzing, squirrels running around. But there's nothing, just this heavy silence that makes my skin crawl. Even the wind seems afraid to blow through these trees. I keep hearing things, though. Footsteps that aren't mine. Branches breaking when no one's there. And sometimes I hear a voice calling my name. It sounds like Danny, my boy who died 3 years ago. But that's impossible. Danny's dead. I made sure of that. The trails keep changing too. I know these mountains like the back of my hand. I've been hunting here for 20 years, but paths that used to go north are now going east. Trails that led to the river now end at cliff walls. It's like the forest is alive, moving around, trying to confuse me. My compass doesn't work right either. The needle spins in circles, never pointing the same direction twice. My watch stopped working this morning at exactly 3:17. That was the time Danny was born, 16 years ago. I found some footprints yesterday. They're huge, 18 inches long, with claw marks at the tips. But here's the weird part. As I follow them, they get smaller, like whatever made them is shrinking as it walks, or maybe getting younger. The missing campers' stuff is scattered all over. I found a torn sleeping bag hanging from a tree branch 20 feet up. There's no animal strong enough to throw it that high. I found a cooler smashed to pieces, like something with incredible strength got angry and destroyed it. But the strangest thing is the smell. It's the smell of something dead, something that's been rotting in the sun for days. The smell gets stronger. When I think about Danny, when I remember that night 3 years ago when everything changed, I keep telling myself I'm here to find those missing people. I keep pretending I'm the good guy, the hero who saves the day. But deep down, I know the truth. I'm not here to save anybody. I'm here because something called me, something that knows what I really am, something that knows what I did to my own son. The sun is going down now, and the temperature should be dropping, but it's getting hotter. The rocks are warm to the touch, and the air shimmers like it's rising from hot pavement. Ranger won't stop panting. His tongue is hanging out, and his eyes are wide with fear. I should turn back. I should pack up my stuff and drive home, but I can't. Something won't let me leave. Every time I try to head back to my truck, I end up walking deeper into the forest instead. Like my feet know where they need to go, even if my brain doesn't want to admit it. Tomorrow I'll keep looking for those campers. At least that's what I'll tell myself. But I know I'm really looking for something else. Something that's been waiting for me for 3 years. Something that wants to settle the score. It's day 2 now. I didn't sleep much last night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Danny's face. The way he looked at me that last night, scared, confused, like he couldn't understand why his daddy was so angry. I need to talk about Danny. Maybe if I say it out loud, it'll make sense. Maybe the guilt will stop eating me alive from the inside. Danny was my boy, my only child. He was 16 when he died, tall for his age, with sandy hair like mine used to be. He wanted to be just like his old man, wanted to ride bulls and win trophies and make me proud. I taught him everything I knew, how to read animals, how to stay calm when something big and dangerous is trying to hurt you, how to hold on when everything tells you to let go. But I also taught him other things, things a father should never teach his son. I taught him that drinking makes the pain go away. I taught him that when you're angry, you hit things. I taught him that love and violence can live in the same house. His mother, Sarah, she tried to protect him from me. She'd take Danny to her sister's house when I'd been drinking too much. She'd make excuses when people asked about the bruises on her arms. She loved me, God help her, and I loved her too in my broken way, but love wasn't enough. It never is when the bottle calls louder than your family. The night Danny died, he came home with another trophy. First place in the junior rodeo. He was so proud, so excited. He ran into the kitchen where I was sitting with my bottle of whiskey. "Dad, look what I won," he said, holding up that shiny trophy. His face was glowing with happiness. I should have hugged him, should have told him how proud I was, should have been the father he deserved. Instead, I was drunk, angry about something stupid, probably lost money on a bet. The sight of that trophy just made me madder. Here was my boy, succeeding, where I was failing, getting recognition while I sat in the dark, drinking my life away. "Another piece of junk," I said. The words came out mean and cold. "Where's that gonna get you? You think some plastic trophy makes you a man?" I saw the light go out of his eyes, saw his shoulders drop, but the alcohol made me keep going. "You're just like me," I said. "A loser who thinks winning some small-town contest means something." That's when Danny did something he'd never done before. He talked back. "I'm nothing like you," he said. His voice was quiet but strong. "I'm not going to spend my life drunk and angry and hurting people who love me." The words hit me like a punch to the gut because they were true. Because my 16-year-old son could see what I refused to admit about myself. So I hit him, not just a slap, a real punch with all my drunken rage behind it. Danny went down hard, hit his head on the kitchen table corner. The trophy fell and broke into pieces on the floor. He didn't get back up. I called 911, told them it was a rodeo accident, said he got thrown from a bull during practice. The paramedics believed me. The police believed me. Everyone believed me because Buck Steele was a local hero, former rodeo champion, good old boy who'd never hurt a fly. Only Sarah knew the truth. She looked at me at the hospital, looked at Danny lying there so still and small, and she knew. But she never said anything. Maybe she was too scared. Maybe she blamed herself for not protecting him better. Danny never woke up. 3 days later, the machines stopped beeping, and my boy was gone. Sarah left me after the funeral, packed her bags and moved to California. She never looked back. I don't blame her. I killed her baby and destroyed our family. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of drinking myself to sleep every night. 3 years of hearing Danny's voice in empty rooms. 3 years of seeing his face in store windows and crowded streets. 3 years of knowing I got away with murder. But now, sitting here, in these mountains, with the heat rising from the ground and strange sounds in the forest, I'm starting to think I didn't get away with anything. I think Danny's been waiting for me, waiting for the right time and place to make things right. The footprints I found today were smaller than yesterday, about the size a 16-year-old boy would make, and they're leading me somewhere specific, somewhere I've been before, toward the old mine where I used to take Danny hunting, where I taught him to track animals, where I showed him how to be patient and wait for the right moment to strike. The same mine where I buried pieces of evidence from that night. Danny's real trophy, the one he died holding, the one with his blood on it. I think my son is calling me home. Day 3. I'm deeper in the forest now than I've ever been. The trail I've been following doesn't exist on any map. It's like the ground just opened up and created a path for me to walk on. Ranger is getting worse. He won't eat his food anymore, just sits there staring at me with those sad brown eyes, like he knows something terrible is going to happen. Sometimes he walks ahead of me, then stops and looks back, whining, like he's trying to lead me away from where we're going. But I can't turn back. Not now. The heat is getting stranger. It comes in waves, like someone opening and closing an oven door. 1 minute I'm sweating, the next minute I'm cold. The trees around me look sick. Their leaves are brown and curling up, even though it's still summer. I found something this morning that made my blood run cold. Scratches on a tree trunk. They're about 5 feet off the ground, exactly Danny's height. The marks look fresh, like someone just made them with their fingernails, but they're too deep to be fingernails. These scratches go into the wood about 1 inch. Whatever made them was strong, really strong. I keep hearing voices now, not just Danny's voice, but other voices too. A woman crying, a man shouting for help. Children laughing, then screaming, the missing campers maybe. Or maybe my mind is just breaking down. The sounds always come from just ahead of me, around the next bend in the trail. But when I get there, there's nothing, just more trees and rocks and that smell of something dead. My water tastes funny. It's warm, even though I filled the bottles from a cold stream this morning, and there's a metallic taste to it, like blood. But I have to keep drinking. The heat is sucking all the moisture out of my body. I tried to use my radio today to call for help, not because I want to be rescued, but because I wanted to hear another human voice, something normal and real. But all I got was static, and underneath the static, I swear I heard Danny whispering my name. Dad, Dad, why did you hurt me, Dad? I threw the radio against a tree and it broke into pieces. The footprints are definitely getting smaller now, and there are more of them. Like whoever is making them is walking slower, taking more steps. Sometimes I see handprints too, small ones, pressed into the mud beside the trail. This afternoon I found a piece of cloth caught on a thorny bush. It was blue denim, the same color as the shirt Danny was wearing when he died. I touched it and it crumbled to dust in my hands. That's when I started running. I ran for maybe an hour, crashing through bushes, stumbling over rocks, trying to get away from this place and these memories. But no matter which direction I went, I kept ending up on the same trail, the trail that leads to the old mine. When I finally stopped running, I was more lost than ever. But somehow I knew exactly where I was. The forest around me looked familiar. These were the trees Danny and I used to hunt near, the rocks where we'd sit and eat our lunch, the clearing where I taught him to shoot his first deer. Everything looks the same, but different, older, sadder, like the whole place has been waiting for me to come back. Ranger won't come near me anymore. He stays about 20 feet away following, but never getting close. When I call his name, he just whines and backs away. Even my own dog is afraid of me now. Maybe he can smell the guilt on me. Maybe he knows what I did. As the sun started going down, I made camp in a small clearing. I built a fire, even though the heat was still rising from the ground. I needed the light more than I needed to be cool. That's when I saw them. Eyes watching me from the trees, red eyes that reflected the firelight like an animal's, but they were too high up. Way too high up. I grabbed my rifle and pointed it toward the trees. "Who's there?" I shouted. "Show yourself." The eyes blinked once, slowly. Then they were gone. But I heard footsteps, heavy footsteps circling my camp. Something big was out there, just beyond the light of my fire. I could hear it breathing, deep, slow breaths like it was sleeping, or like it was trying not to make noise. I sat up all night with my rifle across my knees, waiting. The footsteps kept circling. Sometimes they'd stop right behind me, so close I could feel hot breath on the back of my neck. But every time I turned around, nothing was there. Just before dawn, when I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open, I heard Danny's voice again, clear as day, like he was sitting right next to me. "I'm waiting for you at the mine, Dad." "I've been waiting for 3. Yes, it's time to come home." When the sun came up, I packed my gear and started walking toward the mine. I know it's a trap. I know something is waiting for me there, but I also know I deserve whatever is coming. Danny deserves his revenge, and I deserve to pay for what I did. Day 4. I found the missing campers today, or what's left of them. Their RV was flipped upside down like a toy truck, a 30-foot motorhome, and something just picked it up and threw it against the rocks. The metal is twisted and torn like paper. There are claw marks all over it, deep gouges that go right through the steel. Whatever did this is stronger than any bear or mountain lion, stronger than anything that should exist in these mountains. I found pieces of their camping gear scattered everywhere, a cooler smashed to bits, sleeping bags shredded and hanging from tree branches, a child's teddy bear with its head torn off, stuffing scattered on the ground like snow. But I didn't find any bodies, just blood. Lots of blood. The smell here is so bad I had to cover my nose with my shirt. It's not just the smell of death anymore. It's something else, something rotten and wrong, like meat that's been left in the sun for weeks. Ranger won't even come into this area. He sits at the edge of the clearing and whines. Smart dog. He knows this is a bad place. I took pictures with my camera, but when I looked at them, they were all blurry, like something was moving too fast for the camera to catch. In one photo, I can see a shadow behind the overturned RV. It's shaped like a person, but it's too tall, way too tall. The footprints here are everywhere. They're different sizes now, some big, some small, like whatever is making them keeps changing. But they all have the same shape, long toes with claws at the end. I followed the tracks away from the campsite. They led to a cave I'd never seen before, even though I've hunted in this area for 20 years. The opening is low and dark, and warm air keeps flowing out of it. Air that smells like that rotten meat smell. I called into the cave. "Hello? Is anyone in there?" My voice echoed back, but it sounded different, younger, like when Danny was little and we'd play in the basement, and he'd try to scare me by changing his voice. Then I heard something move deep in the cave, something big, scraping against the rock walls. Getting closer, I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran like a scared rabbit, crashed through the bushes, tripped over rocks, didn't stop until I couldn't hear that scraping sound anymore. When I finally stopped to catch my breath, I realized something awful. The whole time I was running, I could hear laughter behind me, Danny's laughter, the same way he used to laugh when we played hide and seek, and he was winning. That evening, I made camp near a small stream. The water here is cleaner, and I needed to wash the smell of that place off my hands. But even after scrubbing with soap, I could still smell death on my skin. As it got dark, I started hearing voices again, but this time they were clearer. A man's voice calling for help, a woman screaming, children crying for their mommy and daddy, the missing family. They were still alive somewhere, still calling for help. I grabbed my rifle and flashlight and followed the voices. They always seemed to come from just ahead of me, just around the next tree, but I never found anyone. Then the voices stopped, all at once, like someone had turned off a radio. That's when I saw it. Standing at the edge of my flashlight beam was something that used to be human. It was tall, maybe 8 or 9 feet, covered in dark reddish hair. Its arms were too long, hanging down past its knees. Its fingers ended in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through metal. But the worst part was its face. It had Danny's face, older, twisted with pain and anger, but definitely my boy's face. The same green eyes, the same nose that got broken when he fell off his bike at age 10. The same scar on his chin from when he cut himself shaving for the first time. "Danny," I whispered. The thing tilted its head, just like Danny used to do when he was thinking, when he was trying to figure out if I was telling the truth or lying to him. "Hello, Dad," it said in Danny's voice. But the voice was wrong, too deep, too sad. "I've been waiting for you." My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the flashlight. "You're not real. You're dead. You died 3 years ago." "Yes," it said. "You killed me, remember?" The thing stepped closer, and I could see it better now. Its skin was pale and stretched tight over bones that were too big. There were wounds on its chest and arms, old wounds that had never healed properly, wounds that looked like they came from being hit and kicked and thrown against furniture. "I remember everything, Dad. Every time you hit Mom, every time you came home drunk and angry, every time you promised you'd change and then did it again." "Danny, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you, but you did hurt me." The thing's voice was getting louder, angrier. "You hurt me my whole life, and then you killed me, and then you lied about it." I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't stop staring at my son's face on that monster's body. "What do you want?" I asked. The thing smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp, too many. "I want you to come with me, Dad. I want to show you something." It turned and walked back into the darkness. After a few steps, it stopped and looked back at me. "Follow me to the mine, where you buried my real trophy, where you hid the evidence of what you did." Then it was gone, disappeared into the shadows, like it had never been there at all. But I knew it was real. I knew my son had come back for me, and I knew I had to follow him. Day 5. I'm not the hunter anymore. I'm the prey. It started before dawn. I woke up to find rocks arranged in a circle around my sleeping bag. Not just any rocks. They were placed in the exact pattern I used to teach Danny when we went hunting. It's an old trick to mark territory, to let other hunters know someone has claimed an area. My own son is using my lessons against me. All my gear had been moved during the night. My rifle was 20 feet away, leaning against a tree. My backpack was hanging from a branch I couldn't reach. My boots were lined up neatly by the stream, like someone had taken them off my feet while I slept, but I never heard a sound. Whatever Danny has become, he moves like a ghost. I found fresh footprints all around my camp. They circled me dozens of times while I was sleeping. Sometimes the prints were deep, like something heavy was walking. Other times they were light, barely leaving a mark, like he was dancing around me, playing with me. Ranger is gone. I called for him all morning, but he never came back. I found some of his fur caught on a bush about a mile from camp. There was Blood on it. Not much, but enough to know something bad happened. I hope it was quick. Ranger was a good dog. He didn't deserve to pay for my sins. The heat is getting worse. Even my clothes are hot to the touch, like I've been standing next to a fire all day. My water bottles are so warm I can barely drink from them. The metal parts of my rifle are too hot to hold without gloves. But the strangest thing is how quiet everything has become. Yesterday there were still some normal forest sounds, wind in the trees, water running over rocks, my own footsteps on the trail. Now there's nothing. It's like the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I've been walking toward the mine all day, but the trail keeps changing. Paths that should go straight start curving. Hills that were on my left are now on my right. It's like the forest is alive, moving around me, keeping me from reaching where I need to go. But it's not really trying to stop me. It's just making the journey longer, making me suffer more before I get there. Around noon, I found something that made my heart stop. Carved into a tree trunk were words in Danny's handwriting. "Why did you lie about me, Dad?" The letters were cut deep into the wood, like someone had used a knife, but they were too high up for a normal person to reach. Danny would have had to be 8 feet tall to carve them there. I kept walking and found more messages. "Mom still cries for me. I was just trying to make you proud. Why did you hit me so hard?" Each message was carved higher than the last. By the time I found the final one, the words were 15 feet off the ground, carved into a branch I could barely see. "You're going to pay for what you did." That's when I started running again. But no matter how fast I ran, I could hear footsteps behind me. Big, heavy steps that matched my pace exactly. When I slowed down, they slowed down. When I sped up, they sped up. Like whatever was following me was mocking me, showing me that it could catch me anytime it wanted. I stopped to rest by a fallen log and noticed something horrible. My shadow on the ground wasn't alone. There was another shadow next to it, much taller, with long arms and claws. But when I looked around, nothing was there. The shadow stayed with me all afternoon. Sometimes it would move independently, waving at me or pointing toward the mine. Sometimes it would put its shadow hand on my shadow shoulder, like it was trying to comfort me, like Danny used to do when I was sad. As the sun started setting, I heard my son's voice clearly for the first time since that night at the campsite. "You taught me well, Dad," he said. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like the trees themselves were talking. "You taught me how to track, how to hunt, how to be patient, how to wait for the perfect moment to strike." I spun around looking for him, but saw nothing. "You also taught me that the strongest predator isn't always the one with the biggest claws," the voice continued. "Sometimes the strongest predator is the one who knows his prey the best, the one who understands what they're afraid of." "Danny, please," I called out. "I know I hurt you. I know I was a terrible father. But this isn't you. This isn't who you were." "No," his voice agreed. "This isn't who I was. This is who you made me. This is what happens when a father's love turns to violence, when protection becomes destruction." A rock flew out of the trees and hit me in the shoulder. Not hard enough to really hurt me, but hard enough to sting. Then another rock and another, each one perfectly aimed, just like I'd taught Danny to throw when he was little. "Stop it!" I yelled. The rock stopped immediately. "I'll stop when you admit what you did," Danny's voice said. "I'll stop when you tell the truth." "I killed you," I said. The words came out like broken glass. "I killed my own son because I was drunk and angry and stupid. Is that what you want to hear?" "It's a start," the voice said. "But we're not done yet, Dad. We're not even close to being done." The temperature dropped suddenly, like someone had opened a freezer door. My breath started coming out in clouds, even though it had been over 100 degrees all day. "Keep walking toward the mine," Danny's voice said. "It's time to finish what we started 3 years ago." I picked up my rifle and started walking. Behind me, I could hear footsteps again, But this time they weren't trying to hide. They were loud and deliberate, letting me know they were there, letting me know there was no escape. My son was hunting me, and he was using everything I'd ever taught him to do at day 6. I'm at the mine now, the place where it all started, the place where it's all going to end. The old copper mine has been abandoned for 50 years. Most people don't even know it exists. It's just a hole in the side of the mountain, boarded up, with old wood and rusted signs that say, "Danger, keep out." But I know every inch of this place. Danny and I used to come here when he was younger, before the drinking got really bad, before I started hitting him. We'd sit by the entrance and eat our lunch, and I'd tell him stories about the miners who used to work here. He loved those stories. His eyes would get wide when I talked about the men who went deep into the mountain looking for treasure. How? Some of them never came back out. I never told him that I used this place to hide things I didn't want anyone to find. The entrance to the mine is different now. The old boards have been torn away, leaving a dark opening that seems to breathe. Warm air flows out of it in steady pulses, like the mountain has a heartbeat. There are bones scattered around the entrance, old bones picked clean and white. Some look like they came from animals, others look like they might have come from people. The missing campers, maybe. Or maybe other people who wandered too close to this place over the years. I called out Danny's name, and my voice echoed back from deep inside the mine. But mixed with the echo, I heard something else. Crying. Someone crying like their heart was broken. "I'm here, Danny," I said. "I came like you wanted." The crying stopped. "Come inside, Dad," his voice said from the darkness. "Come see what you left behind." I took out my flashlight and stepped into the mine. The air inside was thick and hot, hard to breathe. The walls were covered with scratch marks, deep gouges that looked fresh, like something with claws had been living here for a long time. My footsteps echoed as I walked deeper into the tunnel. Every few steps I'd see something that made my stomach turn. A piece of clothing from one of the missing campers, a child's shoe, a pair of glasses with blood on the lenses. But I kept walking. I had to see this through. The tunnel opened into a large chamber about 100 feet down. My flashlight beam showed rock walls that stretched up into darkness. And there, in the center of the chamber, was a pile of things I recognized. Danny's real trophy, the one he won the night he died. It was cracked and stained with old blood, but still shiny in some places. Next to it was the shirt he'd been wearing. That night, the blue one his mother had bought him for his birthday, and beside that were pieces of the kitchen table, the table he'd hit his head on when I punched him. I'd broken it up and brought the pieces here, buried them deep so no one would ever find them, evidence of what I'd really done. "You kept it all," Danny's voice said behind me. I turned around and there he was, the thing that used to be my son. But he looked different now, smaller, more like the boy I remembered. The monster features were fading, and I could see more of Danny's real face. "I couldn't throw them away," I said. "They were all I had left of you. You had nothing left of me," he said, and his voice sounded younger too, more like the 16-year-old boy he'd been. "You killed me, Dad. You killed everything good about me that night." "I know," I said. The words came out as a whisper. "I know what I did. I've known every day for 3 years. Then why didn't you tell anyone? Why did you let everyone think I died in some accident?" I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. "Because I'm a coward. Because I was afraid of going to prison. Because I didn't want people to know what kind of man I really am." "What kind of man are you, Dad?" The question hung in the air between us. I'd been avoiding it for 3 years, drinking it away, hiding from it. But now, standing in this place with my dead son's ghost, I couldn't avoid it anymore. "I'm the kind of man who beats his wife," I said. "The kind of man who drinks instead of dealing with his problems. The kind of man who kills his own child in a drunken rage and then lies about it." Danny stepped closer. In the flashlight beam, I could see tears on his face. Real tears. "I just wanted you to love me," he said. "I just wanted to make you proud. That trophy, I won it for you. I thought if I could be good enough, smart enough, strong enough, maybe you'd stop drinking. Maybe you'd stop hurting Mom and me." My heart felt like it was breaking all over again. "You were good enough, Danny. You were perfect. The problem was never you. It was always me." "Then why did you hit me so hard? Why didn't you just hug me and tell me you were proud?" I couldn't answer. There was no answer that would make sense, no reason that would justify what I'd done. "I was sick," I finally said. "Sick in my head and my heart. The alcohol made everything worse. But it wasn't just the drinking. I was angry at the world, angry at myself, and I took it out on the people who loved me most." Danny was quiet for a long time. He walked over to his old trophy and picked it up, holding it like it was made of glass. "Mom visits my grave every week," he said. "She brings flowers and talks to me, tells me about her new life in California. She's happy now, Dad. Happier than she ever was with you." "Good," I said, and I meant it. "She deserves to be happy. She thinks you're a monster." "She's right." Danny looked up at me with those green eyes that used to light up when I came home from work, before everything went wrong, before I became someone he was afraid of. "What happens now, Dad? What happens to monsters like you?" I knew what he was asking. I knew why he'd brought me here, to this place where I'd hidden the evidence of my crime. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about justice. "I think monsters have to pay for what they've done," I said. Danny nodded slowly. "I think so too. That's when I noticed the dynamite, old mining explosives, stacked against the far wall of the chamber. They'd been here for decades, left behind when the mine closed. Probably still good, probably still dangerous." Danny saw me, looking at them. "You know what you have to do, Dad," he said quietly. I looked at my son, this broken, twisted version of the boy I'd loved and destroyed. I looked at the evidence of my crime. I looked at the dynamite, and I knew he was right. I walked over to the dynamite. The sticks were old, but they looked solid. There was a box of blasting caps, too, and some fuse wire. Everything I needed to bring this whole place down. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I asked Danny. He was holding his trophy with both hands, now like a little kid holding something precious. "I can't rest, Dad. Not while you're still lying about what happened. Not while people still think you're some kind of hero. What about your mom? She'll never know the truth. She already knows the truth. She's known it for 3 years. She just needs to know that justice was done." I started connecting the fuses to the dynamite. My hands were steadier now than they'd been in years. Maybe because I finally knew what I had to do. Maybe because the guilt was almost over. "Will this make the pain stop?" I asked. "For you, I mean." Danny sat down on a rock and looked at his broken trophy. "I think so. I hope so. I'm tired, Dad. I've been so tired for 3 years. I'm sorry I wasn't a better father to you. I know you are. I can see it in your face, but being sorry doesn't bring me back. It doesn't fix what you broke." I finished with the dynamite and sat down across from him. We looked at each other in the flashlight beam, father and son, in the place where our story was going to end. "Can I tell you something?" Danny said. "Anything. I used to dream about us going fishing together. Just you and me, sitting by a quiet lake, talking about normal things. You wouldn't be drunk and I wouldn't be scared. We'd just be a regular dad and son." My throat felt tight. "That sounds nice. I wanted that so bad, Dad, more than trophies. Or anything else. I just wanted my daddy to love me without hurting me." "I did love you, Danny. I loved you more than anything in the world. That's what makes this so terrible. I destroyed the thing I loved most." Danny wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. For a moment, he looked exactly like he had when he was little and had scraped his knee or been frightened by a bad dream. "I know you loved me," he said. "That's the only reason I'm giving you this chance, the only reason I'm letting you choose how this ends." I picked up the end of the fuse wire. It was long enough to give me maybe 2 minutes to get out of the mine. long enough to run if I wanted to save myself, but I didn't want to save myself, not anymore. What if I stayed here with you? I asked. What if we finished this together? Danny looked surprised. You'd do that? You'd stay? I've been running, from what I did for 3 years. I'm tired of running, and maybe this is the only way I can show you that I'm really sorry, that I'm willing to pay the price for what I did. Danny was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled, and for just a second he looked like my happy little boy again. Okay, Dad, we'll do it together. I lit the fuse. The flame started moving slowly down the wire, giving us just enough time to say goodbye. I'm proud of you, I told Danny. I should have said that the night you won your trophy. I should have said it every day. I'm proud of you too, Dad, for finally doing the right thing. The flame was getting closer to the dynamite, maybe 30 seconds left. Are you scared? I asked. A little. Are you? A little. But I'm more scared of living with what I did than I am of dying for it. Danny reached out and took my hand. His skin felt warm and real, like he was alive again. Like he was my little boy who needed his daddy to chase away the monsters, except this time, I was the monster. And the only way to chase me away was for me to go away forever. I forgive you, Dad, Danny whispered. Thank you, son. I love you. I love you too. The fuse reached the dynamite, and the world exploded into light and sound and falling rock. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time in 3 years, I felt peace. The body of Robert Buck Steele was recovered from a collapsed mine shaft on August 21st, 1983. Cause of death was determined to be cave-in from an apparent dynamite explosion. Mr. Steele's recording equipment was found nearby, containing audio logs of his search for missing campers. Also recovered were fragments of evidence relating to the 1980 death of Daniel Steele, Mr. Steele's son. Based on these findings and the audio recordings, the case has been reopened. Daniel Steele's death has been reclassified from accidental to homicide. The remains of the missing campers were never found. The mine has been permanently sealed. In Mr. Steele's final recording, made just before the explosion, he can be heard saying, "I'm sorry, Danny. Daddy's coming home." Some locals claim they still hear voices in the mountains near the sealed mine, a father and son talking quietly to each other, but the voices sound peaceful now, happy even, like they finally found the fishing trip they'd always dreamed about.